evening. This meeting is called to order. This meeting has been posted in compliance with the open meeting law. Since a quorum is present and there is one member absent, and that is Ray Turner. Okay. Now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now we're open for public comment. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. Each person has up to 5 minutes to speak on a specific agenda item. To comment during the meeting, members of the public may call 702-589-9629 now that the public comment period is opened.
Late.
Oh, okay, we do have someone that wants to make a public comment.
Well, I'm not sure if I do or not. I'm on the agenda. I'm the first person on the agenda.
Oh, okay, we haven't started yet.
Okay, I wasn't
Yeah,
sure
we're still,
whether I- when I was
yeah, we're
supposed
still in public comment. I'm sorry,
No
sir.
problem. We'll call you up when you're. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, with that, we will close the public comment. Okay, and we're on our first item. For possible action, approval of the minutes of the November 30th meeting, 2021.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as printed.
Is there a
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any additions or corrections? Then the minutes will be placed on file. Okay, for possible action, review and recommendation on a proposed addition at 409 Ash Street relative to the adopted exterior design guidelines for that area.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize, I may not have put drawings on for the screen, but the owner, Daniel Benishik, is present. He's proposing a bathroom addition at the rear corner of the house that will be partially visible to Ash Street. There are two aspects of the proposal visible to the street that do not comply with the adopted guidelines for this area. One is that the roof type will be flat for the addition instead of intersecting hip and gable, although the front porch also has a flat roof existing, and the roof material is listed as membrane instead of red composition shingle. And Courtney Mooney, our consultant for historic preservation, is present, and she also evaluated this proposal. Her report is attached in the packet and concludes that while the home will still be contributing to the district if the addition is built, it would no longer qualify for individual listing in the National Register of Historic Places, but it will still contribute to the district. So with that, you've got all the pertinent information attached to the report, and the applicant is present if you've got any questions for him.
Okay, any questions from the committee? And thank you for being here.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thanks for the invitation. You want to start, Larry?
Go down the list. Sure. This is more of a question for Susan. Why isn't the changes to the porch included in the review?
Because the change, it won't be visible to the street. The change to the porch is a wraparound porch, and so the small portion that's being enclosed is at the back part of the part on the side. You know, at least that's how I read the plans. Nothing within the front part of the porch visible to the street is going to change.
That's correct.
Right, but it's this porch here that they're changing. That's the roof. But it's visible from, I mean, you can look at it from the picture.
What sheet are you looking at? What sheet of the packet? Or what architectural sheet?
Let's see. It's the demolition plan, A2-5, or A2 of 5.
Where it says expanded storage area?
Correct, and it's F, the removal of the screen. And then if you look
And
at,
again, that is not the facade facing the street. That is the north facade.
it's not directly facing the street,
No, it's not.
No,
but
No, it
it's
isn't.
facing the right, I mean, you can see it from the right of way, and I guess that's my question, what's,
no. Well, I mean, the staff has never considered, I mean, we've always considered the facade facing the street, and that's what the guidelines apply to. And where the resolution for adoption of the guidelines refers to readily visible from a street, that's to pertain to corner lots. So when there are two street frontages, then the two facades facing the street would be pertinent. But when there is only one street frontage, it's the front facade that has always been evaluated. And the change for this small enclosure of a small portion of the porch is not on the part of the porch that faces the street. And it wouldn't be visible.
it's visible from the photograph of the, from the architectural, the ARA short form, page 31. Yes, it's not the elevation, but it's viewable. The elevation, both the front elevation and the side elevation, is viewable from the street. So it's an interpretation. And the code doesn't say that it has to be just the front-facing facade or,
As I said, that's, the staff's interpretation has always been that if it's not a corner lot, it is the front facade facing the street.
Well, I think we
That
need to
is
look
the
at the
one.
interpretation, because it says visible from the street. If it's visible from the street, I don't care whether it's the front or the side or what. So I think we need to look at that, because that's something that comes up over and over again. In fact, we're talking about that in some of the new code discussions we have. Are we using this term, the front facade, or are we using visible from the street? Because particularly on the avenue houses, it's readily visible. Both sides of a house on the avenues are visible from the street.
As I said, staff's interpretation has never been to
Well, we need to
apply
think about
guidelines.
changing the interpretation, is what I'm saying,
And
okay?
that's
But-
why you're in the process of reviewing the guidelines so that you can make the improvements that you'd like to make.
That's what we're hoping to do, I hope.
So, Madam Chairwoman,
Yes.
that is in a separate agenda item where the committee is going to provide direction
Okay.
to staff on updates to the design guidelines.
Okay,
Now, the committee is certainly welcome to make whatever comments and recommendations to the owner they like. And just because staff didn't, consider the porch to be non-compliant because it's not facing the street, the committee is welcome to make whatever recommendations it likes.
okay. Any comments from the committee again?
Do you have anything more, Blair? Was that it? I have some comments. Well, first of all, I'd like to say to, let me make sure I get the name right.
It's a tough one, Mr. Hahn.
Yeah, well, it's probably no harder than Hans, but is it Benishek? Is that?
That's correct, thank
Is
you.
that right? Yeah. First of all, you're doing a beautiful job. My personal opinion is, have at it, because especially compared to some of the other things that are going on Ash Street, it's very, very well done. And it is visible, but it's just a little bit visible, so I don't have a problem with it. But I do have some questions, actually, and they're really more for Mrs. Mooney than you, Ms. Mooney, because I assume I can, are we able to ask her questions?
She's here, and she
Yeah.
can certainly answer any questions for
Okay,
you.
good. All right, I've got a couple of questions.
Caveat that I didn't prepare for this item, so, because I wasn't,
You'll need to come up to the mic. Yeah.
just keeping that in mind.
Well, Ms. Mooney, these aren't really difficult. I'm a little confused about a couple of things is all. Is because I'm reading, if I get my glasses on, I will. In your conclusions, you have a statement that says, however, the work complies with a key component of the standards in that it is differentiated from the old and will be compatible with the historic materials, features, size, scale, and proportion, and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment. So I understand that statement, okay? But then you say the work appears to comply with the standards with the exception of the following. So you list standard 2, then standard 5, and then standard 9. But standard 9 is exactly the same as what you said up here that the work complies with. It's new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not, blah, blah. The new work will be differentiated from the old and will be compatible with the, so on. So I don't see how that fits. The work appears to comply with the standards with the exception of that, which you've just said up here was okay. I'm just confused is all.
Sure, Courtney Mooney for the record, and I can address that. So where it doesn't comply is the bolded portion of that statement, which is new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy historic materials, features, and spatial relationships. So by adding that on, there will be a bit of a, you'll be covering up historic materials and removing historic materials to add it. So that was the only thing. These are all basically in response to the removal of historic materials that can't be replaced.
Okay. So it's only the first part of that number 9 statement
Correct.
that is in effect here. Okay, well, that's the confusion I had.
Sorry about that.
Nope, no problem. But anyway, yeah, I think it's a beautiful job. And it's the kind of thing we need to see more of, I think.
So, hi.
Hi.
I agree with Charlie that I think your project looks fine. It's just sticks out a little bit. And I think the problem is the guidelines are not up to par in that I think the flat roof is fine rather than what I think our guidelines state should be done, as well as the material of the roof. I don't know.
Yeah, well, if I may, and thank you all for inviting me again. Yeah, I think particularly for this addition, which is only going to be essentially 84 square feet, I think I talked to our architect, who we chose precisely because we are very, very interested in maintaining the historic look and feel of our neighborhood. And we wanted to make sure that this was as seamless and as unobtrusive as possible. Putting a pitched roof on an 84 square foot addition would look like a little doghouse, and it would actually be more visible from the street than would our flat roof. In addition, as was mentioned earlier, we have about a 400 square foot screened-in porch that's got a flat roof, and there's also a sunroom on the south side of the residence that's about 300 square feet. It also has a flat roof. So it seems consistent with the architectural design, and Alan Stromberg, our architect, was also saying by trying to put a hipped roof, a slanted roof back there, it would be very difficult to join those surfaces too. That was one of the other problems in adding the addition. And then obviously then the whole shingles issue is kind of a moot point if we are able to have a flat roof. And for whatever it's worth, I think the guidelines say that it has to be composite shingle. I've owned that house for 20 years. I can only remember red tile roofs in our entire street, and I think they go back decades before that. So I think the original roof was red composite, but that hasn't been the case for literally decades. So,
Thank you.
You're
Can,
welcome.
can I ask a question about the porch that I was asking Susan
Sure.
about? So it sounds like you're trying to, the porch will in fact, or that section of the porch, you're trying to make that actually a wall. And so, and I think I interpret the drawings in that you're gonna bring the siding up so that you don't see that that is no longer, originally it was a wraparound screen porch.
the wraparound will continue. That's really important to us, that the porch extends not only the entire length of the porch, which we have only one of two houses left on the street that has the original screened-in porch. Only ours and our
Yeah.
neighbor across the street. Everybody else is enclosed, theirs completely.
Right.
But we really love that porch, and we want to maintain that. We also want to maintain the wraparound feature. But the porch goes back from that point where you would turn the corner, it goes back about 15 feet. We'd like to take about half that space, the space furthest away from the street, and enclose that for some storage space, because we have almost none in our house. So you wouldn't, as was mentioned by Susan earlier, I don't think you'd see anything from standing in front of the house. You wouldn't see any difference at all. You'd have to be on the north side of the house, probably past the property line of our neighbor to the north to see it. But it will only be the last 8 feet of that porch. So there'll be a good 7 or 8 feet of wraparound portion there on the north side.
And it sounds like, I think what you was described in the drawings, that you would maintain the siding in one color and then a different color that'll sort of match the window
Right.
color. Would you by chance be maintaining the window frame so that you could see that that was originally a window? Because it looks like there's 4 windows on the side, 4
Yeah,
screen windows.
The screens are really quite large, and so we won't be putting in windows that big. I don't even know if we could. We are going to we were planning on putting some sort of window in there. Because it's a storage area, we didn't want to put a large, typical window in. We were thinking about like what do they call it? Like the word escapes me right now, but a long rectangular window that will let some light in. It wouldn't just then be an enclosed wall there, but have a little light and break up that space. But we want to make that north exposure as seamless as possible. We want it to look like it was originally built that way. And so again, it won't be a window instead of those giant screens, which are probably 6 feet wide and maybe close to 4 feet high. But there would be a smaller window there, and we would try to, again, to really incorporate that seamlessly. And the colors as well.
Okay. I guess what I was asking about is if there was a chance of replicating, putting in a wall, but you, instead of removing those last 2 windows, you keep the windows, but you infill them with wood, wall material and,
I see, so keep the screen, but then...
no, you get rid of the screen. It's just it's like a fake window, or it's an infilled window.
Okay.
And it just shows that originally there was a window there, but it's infilled with wall material.
I see.
Or
I see.
you put a wall on the inside of your building, and then you continue to keep that kind of feature, but...
Well, we never considered that. I suppose it's something that we could talk about.
If it's feasible, I don't know.
The type of window that we were talking about is actually in another part of the plans that's going to be on the east-facing portion of the bathroom. But we could certainly consider that. We hadn't thought of that previously.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any other comments at this time?
I would just like to say thank you for your thoughtful consideration in your remodeling plans, and we really appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate the work of the committee, and as I said, my wife and I are really committed to maintaining the look and feel of the historic district, but we've got to have another bathroom. We've got an 8-year-old, and we just can't do it anymore with one bathroom.
Thank you, Mr. Benešek, for being here.
Thank you all.
Okay, moving on. For possible action, presentation of draft historic structures report for the historic water filtration plant.
Good evening, committee. Michael Mays, Community Development Director for the record. So one of the committee's goals was to identify historically significant city-owned buildings for preservation. And at the top of that list was the historic water filtration plant. As part of the City Council's approved fiscal year 22 budget, they approved $500,000 in RDA funds for preservation of the building, rehabilitation of the historic filtration plant, with the goal of seeking reimbursement of $200,000 of that $500,000 through a Commission for Cultural Centers and Historic Preservation grant. Applications for that grant are due on February 25th of this year. On January 27th of 2021 and February 16th of 2021, this committee provided guidance to staff on the priorities for the filtration plant preservation. And it was also recommended to consider a historic structural report and study for the building. And so that was also budgeted for fiscal year 22. That draft report is contained in your packet. It also provides recommendations for prioritization for the building. And Bob Olson with LGA Architects and of course Courtney Mooney with Northwind Resources are here to give that presentation and to answer your questions. What we're looking for from the committee tonight is, after the presentation, providing guidance on concurrence with their priorities. With that information, then staff will focus the grant application on those improvements. And so with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Olson.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah, thank you for letting us present tonight. As Michael said, Bob Olson for the record. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Bob Olson with architect with LG Architecture. I can hear myself better actually now. Thank you. So anyway, yeah. So what we're going to do is just kind of walk you quickly through the report that you have in front of you. It's about 150 pages long, but I'm just going to hit some highlights. And I'm open for any questions you might have as we go through this. And we've got just a few slides and a PowerPoint. And I think I'll just start with, I guess we're already up. So anyway, so that's the cover shot right there. And I tell you, I moved here from the Midwest about 3 years ago. And I did a lot of historic work back in the Midwest as an architect. And you've got an incredible community here. I tell you, it's just really a joy, particularly coming here from Vegas. And you've got a real gem here. So we had 5 consultants work with us on this, Courtney being one of them. And so what we're proposing, and I'm going to just kind of jump right to this, and then we can get into this. And so basically, let me tell you, I'll read my copy here. I can't really see that screen, but we are recommending that basically that the funds be allocated to repair the original building itself, the original footprint, the 1930-31 footprint of the building. And this would include tuck pointing all the masonry areas necessary on the original building, repairing, reglazing all historic windows. We're very fortunate that all the, most of the steel sash is there. And those, as Courtney and I know, are just actually key to the architectural character of that building. So we want to get those restored, reglazed, and protect them. And then we also are including, we've got some structural bracing we need to do, some seismic concerns that our structural engineer, Silman Associates, have that need to be taken care of, again, in the original building. And then the only exception to this is that we are recommending, and one of our 5 consultants was a hazardous waste expert, we are recommending that we abate the whole building because, one of the issues we're going to have, the additions, Courtney and I, and Courtney is free to speak if you have any questions too, but we're not in a position to recommend the additions get torn off yet by any means. Those still need to be evaluated, and so much depends on the final use of the building. Either way, if they get demolished, the abatement's got to be done. If they stay, the abatement's not gonna be, has to be done. So we're recommending that that also is in the initial priority of that. The good news is you all had just a great project done by Cooper, I think roofing was it, that redid the flat areas, the tile, and it's just in fantastic shape. So you've got a roof that's like, what, 3 years old, and so that's fantastic. And that helped, kind of minimize further damage. And so that's really kind of the gist of this. And what is not in your report, in talking to Courtney, and I agree with her, we're also recommending that maybe we think of an ad alternate that would tuck point the additions to the building, just to try to get those so that we don't have any more damage. The roof helped, but we're still getting some infiltration. But that's kind of an ad alternate, if the funds are available. And I'll go through the numbers here in a little bit for you. So that we kind of put that right up front. And then the rest of this kind of cover letter goes pretty much point by point with the feedback from the city and trying to address all those items. And anyway, so I'll kind of get into this. So basically, what we have here, we just are showing right now, the beautiful drawings, the beautiful building of the original building itself. And, we're looking at, some sections, elevations, and then the deep basement that's in there that's full of pipes, which are just incredible. I mean, and then additional elevations there, as well as the floor plan that shows those tanks between the original building and the sculpture park you have out there, which is also fantastic. And then this slide right here, and this I'm gonna have to step away and read from. So basically what we're talking about, and I apologize, can I don't know if I can. Well, I tell you what, never mind. Tell you what, I got a solution.
I have a solution.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I got two solutions now. But, we brought boards just in case the IT didn't quite work. So anyway, so what I want to go through here, this is really, I think, the key right here. So what on this slide, there's a preliminary budget square foot numbers moving forward with the recommendation. We have a kind of approximate square footages here for the total building of about 2,900 square feet. The basement, first floor, about 3,500. Second floor, which is the nice vaulted space. Third floor, which is the tower with the tank in it. And so that comes up to about 7,600 square feet. If we, don't worry about the original, or the additions and just focus on the building, the original building, we have a first floor of 2,000, second floor of 1,000, and third floor of 300. We really don't need to worry about the basement in this part of it anyway, because we'll be structurally, we're including the first floor, getting that reinforced. So basically, what we're doing, and I've gone through kind of the scope of what this number would include, and in talking to both OCMI, and we have a cost consultant on this as well, and also talking with our structural consultants in Stillman and Los Angeles, we've come up with and actually with Courtney and with Kimberly, our OCMIs, we've checked with a lot of people on this pricing. We've come up with about $137.50 a square foot for the above original building to do all this work except the abatement, and that comes up to about $453,750. So that's kind of includes getting the original building, to restore the parts that need restoring and protect it so that we can, the city can decide what an incredible vision this building could become in the future. And then also we're recommending that we abate the whole building, get rid of the hazardous materials. Ninian Moore is our consultant there. And OCMI, they had a little higher number than this, but then I talked with Ninian Moore, who did all the field testing, and came up with the $625 a square foot. And that's for the entire building, so 7,600 square feet, and that's 47,500. So those two together are just over 500,000 for the priorities. And then, as I said, we added from what you got, what you received last week, we added a recommendation for an ad alternate to tuck point the addition, the exposed walls, and that's $32 a square foot, and that's about another $48,000 as net alternate. So that's kind of the crux of our recommendation on, you know, what this 150 pages kind of, you know, talks about. And there's a lot of good information, a lot of great experts that kind of helped us. I'm just on this now. Okay. Okay. Anyway, so that's kind of and this is kind of the major elevation right here, which shows that, you know, the front door, the stone around it, and the tower, the Italianate, you know, the tile on the top. It's just, I mean, it really is an incredible building. Anyway, so that's kind of that. Now I'm going to jump a little bit. Okay, another real opportunity, and this wasn't really as much of our assessment as much as just what we really appreciate about the site, and which on the left is a site plan that shows a large area of the site. And one of the questions the city had would be any issues with accessibility or egress to the building relative to handicap. And the good news is we have plenty of site to work with around it, so we can accommodate anything we need to in the building, and so much is going to depend on what the final use and occupancy of the building is. So a lot of those questions like sprinkler system, things like that, they're going to have to kind of wait a bit until we understand what the use of the building is and the occupancy. But the good news is that we've got plenty of space to work with, you know, and the other thing we wanted to show, you know, you've done a great job, you know, with the sculpture garden to the one side, the community garden. You know, there's opportunities that maybe those could be, you know, incorporated and you know, kind of celebrated and amplified in any kind of vision for the future. Okay, this is a slide. I told Michael earlier that we wanted, I figure we owed you an explanation for kind of, we had some bizarre kind of images in the report. And what this is called a Metaport study of the building. And what we did is we had a 3D camera document the entire building. So we've got that. It's a huge file. And so that allows us to basically, you know, walk through the building, look at it from any view, tear it apart. And this is kind of an overall view that shows, you know, the loading area, the entry area, this two-story space. So that's what that is. It's called Metaport study. And that's something that we've done for you that you have, you know, you can use it any way you want for posterity. I mean, we'll be using it, you know, as we wrap things up over this next month. But that's what this is. It's basically a 3D modeling of the whole thing. So, but it makes for some very bizarre images, but very cool too, I think. Okay, now I'm going to talk about, and this maybe is off the subject a little bit, but we've got, there's 4 precedent projects that we put in this PowerPoint. It just to kind of, you know, I know you're excited about what this building could be, and you know, I think you've had community feedback already, but it's going to key to, you know, continue that, build on that community feedback, and, you know, plan some additional workshops, et cetera. But the first project on the top is, or actually the whole image there is outside and inside, is the Baltimore Water Museum. And this actually, I think, was a project that was in some of the information you gave us. It's a project you kind of looked at. And the sad news, it was a great idea for this project. They spent a lot of money, but it wasn't economically sustainable. So it opened up and it closed like a few years later. So it's something just as you all move forward to be aware of, is that, you know, anything you do, you got to make it sustainable, you know, with revenue and how it works. So it's not just construction, it's, you know, operating budget, income, et cetera, that's got to work out. And then the next project, and the other reason we're showing these is just as, you know, taking an old building and celebrating, restoring it, and then doing an addition to it that is, you know, it's kind of quiet. And this is a building, and we could show 100 examples, but we just picked a couple. This is a building in Kentucky that had an old building, addition was added, and then you can see what they did to the inside.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so there's just, I mean, it's amazing what this building could be. It is so, you know, the bones are just incredible. Okay, the last 2 are kind of close to home, so we're going to, maybe a little self-serving, but I think they're good projects to look at. You know, LGA, we did the Children's Museum. You know, we've done a lot of museum work, and this is one project that we did, you know, that has worked out very well. But the last project I really wanted to talk, you know, a little more about, this is the Mom Museum. that we, did the restoration of it, put the museum inside. And this has been an incredible success story because of the foresight that the director and the board put into it as far as revenue. In fact, we're working with them right now on doing some additions to this. It's been so successful. So the point is, as you move forward with this building, it really has to be analyzed from every level to make sure this thing is open, it stays open and thrives and is a benefit to the community. And that's what this project has been doing. So that's all I've got as far as presentation goes. Happy to, answer any questions. And Courtney's here if we need any questions. So that's all we got. Thank you.
I've just got a kind of a quick question. Going over all the little points that you've made on this so far, what I'm getting from it is basically that when it's all said that if we do all that you've recommended at this point, the building will be secure, preserved, deterioration will have been stopped, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about abatement, I assume that's removal of lead paint, et cetera, and
I
any
apologize.
Asbestos.
Asbestos and lead paint.
So then
yeah.
that would have the interior cleaned up, so down the road a ways, if the city decided the city came up with a plan for the inside of the building, it'd basically be ready to go. The outside is done, it's secured, inside has been cleaned up and ready to go for whatever project ends up going inside the building. Is that kind of
Exactly, yeah.
That's basically where you're at with, and we're up about $550,000 roughly, give or take?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. No, thank you, Mr. Port.
I had a question
Yeah.
regarding the elevator. So I was just curious if you have any kind of rough ideas, what kind of money might be involved in just making it operational, not necessarily for the public's benefit,
Yeah.
but for the city or maybe for future work, if that's already, is it, I'm wondering, is it, what kind of condition is it in, what we have there? Or, do we need to replace the whole elevator system within that shaft?
Yeah, I think, I'm kind of, I'm kind of guessing a little bit here, but, it looked like it was in pretty good shape. We couldn't test anything because the power's off. But what we will do is I will talk to the consultant and we can put a number together for this final report. Most of the pieces are still there, which we want to respect that. And it'd be nice to get it restored as a freight elevator. Obviously, it's never going to be a passenger elevator, but that could be a whole nother expansion that could be pretty exciting too for the project. But it'd be nice to restore it as a freight elevator, as it was used. And so I will get back to you on the cost. I really don't know, but I'll talk to I think I forget Terp. I think is helping us with that. But so I'll get that. That'll be in the final report.
And, the main reason I'm thinking it'd be good to have it functional as a freight elevator is for future work that's going to be done in the building, and then perhaps at a later time it could be refurbished to accommodate the public, but I just think, my gut feeling is maybe we want to try and get that thing, if it's capable of being operated as it is, just with, if it's only going to be $5,000 or $10,000 to get that thing operational, I would think that would be an asset going forward for any future renovations and.
Yeah, that's something, that's what we were trying to think of, something where you spend the money and it's not wasted, and that wouldn't be wasted, like you said. It also could be an interim use, if you decide to use that for storage more. Things that really are not life safety or occupancy kind of threatening kind of things, it might be used that way. But no, if that was restored, that would stay, because that's historically significant. So that money is spent once and you're done,
Okay, so.
Wait,
I have a question. This report, is this like required before we can start any kind of work? Is that why we do this?
So approximately a year ago, when the committee was providing us recommendations on what to focus on for restoration of the building, and toward the objective of applying for this grant, one of the suggestions was it will be very helpful to have this study done to zero in on priorities, and that will also help us with the grant application.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. Thank you for this. This is great. I like seeing these kinds of details, kind of geeky like that. But anyway, I was curious about the seismic bracing. Was that for the purpose of preserving the structure, the integrity of the structure, or is that for life safety?
Both. Yeah, both. You know, it's a seismic area that it needs to be seismic. You know, anything, you know, new code would require us to make it, you know, structurally sound. And right now it's not, I mean, you know, barring a huge earthquake, we're fine, don't get me wrong, but that's got to be done. And that's something that is done once and then the money is spent, but yeah. And then down the road is life safety issues. But right now we just want to make sure that nothing happens. You know, if some fluke happens, we want it so that it's seismic, you know, taken care of structurally so that it survives.
That was part of when you said the word code, that was one of my questions that when I read through this, I was wondering which code are you talking about? Is it a life safety code? Is it a building code? Is it the international code?
Well, typically it's the international building code, and then it's, you know, subsections of that with the structural engineer with the seismic requirements is what he's dealing with on that, yeah, so.
It sounds like we're not like ready to jump on board yet to deal with improving life safety needs there. So if seismic was for the purpose of life safety, then is that something we would do later? Or do you recommend for the purpose of preserving the structure, we do it now?
Yeah, do that, do it now.
Okay, got it.
And we're not suggesting any life safety things right now, because that would be a waste of money until we know what the occupancy is. So no, that was a great question, but you're absolutely right. But the site, we just don't want it to fall down. I mean, basically, you know.
Yeah.
So
another question I had was, were you asked to, and maybe it's in here, but I missed it, regarding security and fire protection? Again, not for life safety, but for the security and protection of the building.
Well, I guess indirectly, you know, the security is kind of a, you know, they've got, you know, locks on and that kind of thing. As far as fire protection, you know, I mean, that's a good question, but no, not, because the sprinkler system is kind of a, you know, I mean.
It's life safety.
Yeah, so, you know, and I think that, you know, if, you know, heaven forbid, if a fire broke out, you know, I don't think it could do much damage. It's a masonry building, you know, before it's covered, but no, I don't think it would make sense to spend money, put a wet system in, put anything in to protect it from fire.
But how about just a detection system?
Yeah, I think that, you know what, I tell you what, no, that's a great idea. I think that would be good.
Both security and fire.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and get that addressed directly as Mr. Turner's question too on the elevator. Yeah, that's a great question. No, thank you.
And then another topic, again, if I missed it, I apologize, pest mitigation. Did you notice any pest problems?
Yeah, we didn't, and Nindy and Moore did that hazardous, and they didn't see anything, but I will ask Kurt Brooks of Nindy and Moore.
Because I thought there was like owl issues, but maybe that's been addressed. And I don't know if there's a mouse problem or a rodent problem.
We were looking for mice and rodent problems, frankly, and looking for other infestations, but didn't see anything. But again, I will and that's one of the reasons for this presentation right now too, is because we're a month away from the 100%.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that we address, and in between now and, you know, a month, you know, please feel free to, you know, get any questions.
Okay.
You know, we'll do the best to answer everything by the time we deliver this.
And then my final question was about the foundation or the site. And if you addressed, and again, I didn't see it, protection of the foundation in the vicinity of the direct vicinity of the building, such as vegetation or site runoff. Was there any, did you notice any penetrations or intrusions?
Very, very minor. No, very, and Mel and Nathan, our structural engineers, talked about that a little bit, but no, they didn't, there was no concern there.
Okay.
The biggest concern was seismic and just some lateral, just some bracing in general, you know.
And when you talk about bracing, are you talking, I've seen where that's the honkin' huge I-beam that spans, the entire, is that what you're talking about? You're
No.
talking about the wall type?
You know, we've talked about different options, and that's not part of this,
Okay.
to design the options. But we've had, Courtney was on a call with our structural engineers, and whatever we do, once that's determined what it is, then it'll be very, sensitive historically. It'll be very, with kid gloves, we'll get it taken care of. And that's why, and actually Mel, our structural engineer, his area of expertise is historical structures. And then Courtney is a great collaborator on that, so.
Thank you.
Now, I have just one question about you talk about the diaphragm, which I assume is part of the seismic mitigation. Is that going to require removal of the roof tiles?
No. No, that,
Well, good, that's all I
no,
needed.
I questioned that too, right off the bat when we started talking about that, Mr. Hans, because it doesn't make sense. So we'll find another way to do it. Ideally, they would like to have like plywood sheathing put down as a, for help this, but it didn't happen. They put something else down because they had it's a wood deck there already. But there's other concerns to that, so that wouldn't have solved it entirely. But there's no way we're gonna, number one, mess with the tiles or even a brand new membrane roof that's on there. I mean, that's, it's done. They did a great job because we've got tie conditions we're worried about. So it's not just that. So no, everything's gonna stay intact, and then we'll take bracing, from within subtly.
Oh, that's good to hear. I see that diaphragm, they were worried about it and so on, and.
No, you hit it right on the head. I had the same question to Mel when I saw
Okay,
that,
good.
so.
That's good to hear. Anyway, I thank you for the report. I mean, the thing is great. I understood a little teeny bit of it.
Well, Mr. Olson, we appreciate this comprehensive report. Some of us are not experts, but I'm sure that this is going to be a very helpful tool to our staff and to those that are working directly with this project. We're very excited.
Yeah.
And as you said, this is a beautiful building, and we're really privileged to have it here in Boulder City. And I'm just delighted that our town and our city fathers and leaders have taken this seriously and run with this. And we're just privileged to have Mr. Mays and Susan working on this project with us.
Yeah, there you are.
Thank you.
You're very lucky. Thank you very much.
So if I have questions for Courtney's section,
Yeah,
that-
yeah.
is that best to just do that way? Because they are kind of two separate documents.
Yep.
Hey, Courtney, welcome. I'm glad you're here in person.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I know. It's been a while.
Were you going to do a presentation, or do you want questions?
Nope, go ahead and fire questions at me.
So thank you for your treatment plan report. This looks great. I was wondering, there's so much in here, and I wasn't sure. Is this enough, I guess, for this project to move forward with the grant writing and preliminary treatment? Or were you planning to also expand on this for eventual updating the National Register form and historic context, or anything further from that, from this?
So the next steps for this document is to kind of fill in some of the missing pieces, and they were highlighted in the report. I'm sure you noticed them. We're waiting to kind of get some feedback from the committee. We're going to go back to the drawing board and, kind of fine tune some of these things. And then I will add in the very specific recommendations, like, for instance, seismic enhancement. What does that mean? Will the recommended treatment meet the Secretary of the Interior standards? So I'm just going to work with him to try to keep that stuff as hidden as possible. There were some recommendations in there you might have seen to remove some of the underground pipes and plumbing and mechanical and electrical stuff. So and I recommended to Bob that we keep as much of that as possible, especially any of the pipes, because that's really important to telling the story of it, as a water conveyance and treatment facility. So those are the next steps where I'm going to put those in. I'm going to make recommendations for the best way to accomplish that without having a negative impact on the building. But beyond that, there's no other step for Northwind in terms of preparing a National Register nomination or anything like that yet. So that, right now, this is just this. This can go to be part of, backup probably for a grant application. The whole project can. And it would help the CCCHP folks determine, whether or not this is the right treatment for the building and if that's something that, meets their funding criteria, so.
Does it also have to meet, to me, it looked like a Section 106 document, and so do you have to identify how the project impacts the Secretary's standards or the National Register criteria? And so what I'm getting at is how do I say this? Is it possible to update this with, and I think this would be a National Register update, and that is the importance of the engineering of this building. It's important for its engineering, and that hasn't been described in great detail as far as the water conveyance, and does it meet the National Register criteria as an engineering site, so to speak.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And so like you would normally do, like, let's say a historic American engineering record on this and describe that how the water conveyance worked and which parts of the building are attributed to that engineering or that process, and therefore those features are important for their engineering. Well, they're important because of their engineering record for that building. I don't know. So I'm not sure if that goes in this document, or is that part of like the National Register update if we were to ever nominate this individually?
I'm trying to find, so since when Northwind did our update in 2020, we determined that it was individually eligible under criterion A for its association with, the history of the development of the city. And I believe we identified some themes.
You do have the theme of engineering and community planning and development.
Okay.
Recommended. So that's my question. If it's recommended, does it have to actually be listed? Let's just say, for example, if it's not listed on the National Register or considered eligible, and you decide to yank out all of the plumbing, which is part of the engineering, importance of the building, that's an impact to that integrity of that building.
Right.
That context.
And that's where we're identifying the character defining features so that we know those are the important things that can't really be messed with. And those character defining features are based on its association with, the water, and it's the engineering and all of those components that make up its association with that theme. So that's what would be included in this document.
Okay.
So because it's already in a listed historic district, it doesn't need to be, it doesn't really need to, you're well aware of this. It doesn't provide any additional protection to make it individually eligible or listed individually eligible. So I think the key thing is to just really be very clear about those character defining features, make sure that, and again, we're still going through that process in discussions with, Mel and the whole team and Bob, just to kind of like work out what some of those things might be, kind of looking at it, what are the original components that are remaining. And so we're sort of going through that process right now of filtering out some of those things. So I think there will be a little bit of revisions to that section of the document. But I think that's the key thing moving forward in determining, how if some of these recommendations, in order to bring it to code, are going to have a negative impact on any of those character defining features. So I want to make sure that those are all documented.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
I have two little trivial questions. You'll have to excuse me, but one of the things that's important to me in these things are the references cited, because I like to look at those. But on page 8, you reference Nelson, 1932, but it's not included in the references cited.
Okay.
So if you could do that, send me, I'd like to know who that was, because there's another reference to a Nelson, Lee H., that's dated 1988, so he's a National Park Service presentation brief, so I assume that's two different Nelsons, but maybe sometime you could send a note to Michael or something, and I can get it from him who that Nelson is.
Sure.
But I would like to commend you on the report. I mean, geez, I read it. It was like reading a novel. I couldn't put it down once I got started in it. So you did a great job with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I did have another question. The period of significance is to 1982, but those additions are built before that. So are those additions, or maybe you're still working on this to determine if they're still, are they historic in and of themselves now, separate from the period of significance of the city, period of significance, or?
Right, yes. It's a tough one because they're not, they're barely hanging on. So that's kind of, again, we're having some discussions internally about those, so there's a couple.
Meaning they're in really poor condition?
They weren't built the same way. Well, Bob can talk about that, sure.
It's kind of ironic, and Courtney, correct me on the dates, but the smallest one that's kind of at the base of the tower was done in like 31, 32. It's like they finished the building and realized, well, we better add a little more for something. They forgot something. And it's the worst constructed of the two additions. When we looked at it first, we thought that was the newest one. Somebody just pulled up in a truck and just put this thing up, because it's just not very well done. And it kind of hides the base of that. And then the linear one hides some stuff. You know, if you look at that, the side you enter on, you've got this great stonework around there, and that is kind of obliterated on the other side by the other addition. So Courtney and I both would like to, you know, we can make a great case for taking them off, but it's not, you know, but they could be needed if a use needs them, and then maybe we.
True.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Let's say we're still fighting over that part.
I think we agree.
That's still to be discussed, so, but yes.
So do you still want, I'm sorry, did you still want comments? I mean,
Sure.
I haven't really poured through this, and is it okay to, like, within the next week, provide comments on this?
Yeah, that would be fine. I mean, the intent this evening was for you to review the report, ask questions, provide guidance before we submit the grant application. Deadline being the 25th, obviously, I'll be working on that. I'm not going to wait till the last day. So yes, within the next week, that would give them enough time.
I think we could probably do, if we had comments within 2 weeks,
Okay.
that'd give us a couple weeks to, is that
Doesn't
okay?
it give us time to make the revisions?
Yeah, it should, yeah, because it's not due the 23rd, and the report's the 25th is the grant, so yeah. So if we got all comments within 2 weeks, I think Courtney and we, or the team can get everything in there. We'll do our best doing it.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say again, it's a fantastic report, and it's a major, major milestone for us in the efforts to have the water filtration plant restored, and I'm very encouraged by your enthusiasm, and I feel grateful that we have you guys working on this with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney, for your expertise, and we appreciate your enthusiasm also.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any other comments before?
Yeah,
oh,
Linda,
go ahead, Charlie.
I have a question for Michael, actually. Because part of this packet was this the application or information on applying for the CCCHP. And one of the things I noted was that there's, the applicants must submit a letter, if I understood it right, by November 5th. New applicants must submit a letter with original, and so that SHPO has it by, was that done?
Yes,
Okay, is that a public document? Can we get a copy of that letter?
sure.
Okay.
Basically, it says the city is interested in preservation of the building,
Yeah,
and we would like to apply for a grant.
Okay.
But I'll be
basically.
happy to share that with you.
Yeah, I just like, I'm just curious about this whole process, because this is quite an involved process, it looks like, in applying for this grant, but, you'll be busy.
Who is writing the grant application? You,
That would be me.
That's you? Thank you.
Oh, okay. I think, has everybody now commented on this project? Okay, anything else, Courtney, that you'd have for us? All right.
She's just waiting for the next one.
Okay, then we'll go on to the next item. Possible action, discussion with Northwind Resources LLC on potential changes to the adopted exterior design guidelines for various properties in the historic district relative to possible future changes to the city code.
So the committee's goal, one of the goals since the goals was created, was looking at Chapter 27 of the City Code regarding historic resources and making modifications to that section of the code. One of the items identified in that process was the fact that the existing design guidelines need to comply with the Secretary of Interior's standards. The current design guidelines were created by the Historic Preservation Committee between 2009 and 2011, based on the 1983 nomination of the National Register. The committee has agreed in prior discussions that the existing guidelines need to be updated and that this is key to consideration of changes to Chapter 27. One of the things that had come out of the open houses last year when the city was discussing with the public the potential changes to Chapter 27 was, how will this impact me? Meaning the design guidelines for each of the neighborhoods. So the committee has agreed that working on the guidelines is important and was a priority when we hired Northwind to focus on. And so what we've done is we've had Courtney look at the existing design guidelines, and she has a presentation tonight that she wants to share with you some of her initial perspectives. I included some of that in the staff report, but she'll go over that. The goal is to get guidance from the committee on what we should be focusing on for updating those guidelines. With your direction, then Courtney and staff will work on those, and the ultimate goal is for updates of those guidelines that would be reviewed and approved by the committee, and then as the original guidelines were done, presented to the city council for formal approval. And so with that, I will turn it over to Courtney.
Good evening, committee. Okay, so should we have this is going to be, actually, could we start the first slide? Yeah, Holly and I are a team tonight, so I wasn't as well prepared as Bob, with boards, so I apologize for that.
The blue one, right? Short guidelines?
Yeah,
There you go. Okay. Right
okay. Where do I point this?
Don't find it anywhere.
Oh,
Hit up.
I hit that, but nothing happened. Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. Okay, so the first step I took in my evaluation process was I walked through the process of finding the design guidelines for a property located within the Boulder City Historic District as if I was, I was trying to approach this as if I was doing this for the first time. And I immediately recognized a few challenges. One of the overarching challenges with the district itself and doing any kind of design guidelines is that there are so many different styles in the district. So I started looking at several different cities' historic design guidelines that have districts with a variety of styles. And what I found is that almost all of them had one document. It was like a giant PDF that had 300 pages. And the guidelines seem to be, for the most part, a little bit more general rather than just being very prescriptive. So for example, don't replace windows or don't move front entrances, etc. And I thought that these types of general kind of guidelines are included in the Secretary of the Interior standards, which the city already uses to evaluate applications for alterations. So rather than reinvent the wheel, I thought it was more appropriate to use the existing system and information with some streamlining, because it's clear that a lot of work went into the creation of these guidelines, and a lot of the information, most of the information is still very relevant and just can be kind of plugged into a different format. So I'm going to walk you through the current process for finding the design guidelines for a property within the Boulder City Historic District. And because I would have to go back there and work this. I'm going to just kind of show you the main page, which I'm sure you're familiar with. But if we could just have that one website up. Sure. Okay, so if you could scroll down just a little bit to the guidelines documents, you can see there are quite a few documents there. So the first thing you would do is you would, and you don't have to do this, Holly, but you would click on the Guideline Summary, and that page pops up. There's a link at the bottom to the city's webpage that doesn't work. The master guidelines chart is not updated with current 2020 findings regarding contributing and non-contributing and individual eligibility. No big deal, that can be fixed pretty easily. The guidelines chart itself, once you select, so you look at you look on your master guidelines chart, you find your property, and then once you select which chart for the specific guidelines for your property, you notice that there's a front page on there that's pretty wordy, and a lot of the text is repeated from the Guideline Summary sheet. The applicable address table is repeated from the Master Guidelines chart, and in some cases is in a different location within the document. The Guidelines matrix is a little bit complicated, and some charts have multiple styles because they're based on groups defined in the 1983 nomination. And the resolution is included for the approval of the guidelines. So what, just make sure I'm on the right side. Okay, we can go back to the PowerPoint now. Thank you, Holly. Oh. It's okay. We'll only have to torture you one more time. Now, as I'm going through this, I also want you to keep in the back of your mind how your property owners will react to these types of changes, and if this is something that you think is, doable, because I don't think that since the recommendation is to just sort of reorganize it, it's not really any more high-tech than it was before. You still have to go on a website and click on different links. It's just condensed a little bit. So overall, there's just a lot of back and forth steps and kind of, repeated information. Oh, I gotta go. Okay, well, this is, I apologize for this. I had these kind of as an animation and it's not quite working. So so now we'll go to the proposed changes to the process. So again, none of which is going to require someone to be any more tech savvy than they were before. On the main historic preservation webpage, we recommend that the guidelines document section only contain a few links, and that they would be named Step 1, Guideline Summary, Step 2, Find Your Property. All the guidelines would be just like one link would say all guidelines if you needed to. And then there would be a link to the Boulder City Historic District nomination, the updated survey that was done in 2020, and the Secretary of the Interior standards. So instead of having where you saw on that other page all the guidelines like separate, they would just be a link and then you could access all the guidelines. In regards to the summary, which is here, most of the suggested revisions were clarifications and updates, and there were some minor corrections to terminology. The major substantive changes to the summary kind of reflect a shift toward the reorganization of the guidelines by style rather than group. And I'll get into that later. The other changes are to a change that would include non-contributing properties built within the period of significance as properties that would have to comply with the guidelines with allowances, and the inclusion of live links to other steps, as well as to the Janus and Northwind reports and the SOI standards. And then, of course, one thing that I neglected to add in my initial report was that there would be some text on this summary page that says, where can I get some more information? And it would have the steps and the links. So step 2, you would find your property. Here's where, Holly, I will torture you one more time. If you could get the county website up. So a link to this step would be provided in the guideline summary. And what we would be recommending is a link to an interactive map. So we would essentially be getting rid of that master address chart.
So the website or the map?
Well, the county website with the map on it. That link, yeah. And then if you could just, well, actually it's right there. So you, if you're all familiar with the county's assessor's website, where it has all the parcel data for all the parcels in the website or in the county, you can click on a property and it'll come up with this sidebar that has a lot of information and also additional links that take you throughout the county. So we would recommend that you could get rid of that master chart and you could click on your property. It would need to show an address, would be pretty helpful if that was kind of floating above. You click on your property, and then up this sidebar would pop up with information like, is it contributing or non-contributing or individually eligible? It might have a link to the ARA form for that property, the group designation, a copy of the applicable resolution, and any other information that might be appropriate. Okay, we can go back to the last time. I owe you some cookies. Okay. All right. Okay. So now I will walk you through the changes to the design guidelines themselves. So from that interactive map, you can click on the design guidelines for your house based on your style. And what we prepared, we just decided to use Spanish Revival as the example. We think that the style, reorganizing for style would contribute to the committee's goals of educating the public on different architectural styles in the district. especially your own house, like what is that style? It's a more visual-oriented approach that I think will help property owners and architects kind of have a better understanding of what the character-defining features are. So again, this is not what we're going for, our final, the final look of the document. This is just content only. So obviously it needs to be a little prettier than that. So the table that shows the descriptive narrative for the, that shows the contributing and non-contributing and individually eligible can be eliminated if this information is included in the data pop-up on the interactive map. Below the table is a narrative for the Spanish Revival style in Boulder City and the United States. And this, again, kind of puts the style in the local and national context for the property owner. Another important change is a shift from defining the character-defining features of each home toward making the features a bit more general. So that first paragraph reads, "The list below includes typical expressions of the Spanish Revival style as exists within the district, but it's not intended to be an exhaustive list of every single variation of the style. Property owners are encouraged to compare the historic features of their property to the recommended guidelines when planning for rehabilitation projects." Now, that can be reworded, but the idea is that these are the Spanish Revival characteristics that are found in the district. So this is also saying, you know your home. It's also saying minor alterations that are in keeping with the Spanish Revival style, but maybe not specifically your property might still meet the standards. So this allows for some interpretation by the committee and city staff to reach the ultimate goal, which is to maintain or improve contributing or individual eligible status. And this slide is just showing that there are indeed even sub-variations, within the Spanish Revival style. So you would have enough graphics to kind of show, hey, the Spanish Revival can have a stucco finish, or it can have a brick exterior, et cetera, et cetera. So you do want to address those differences, but I think graphically really helps kind of bring it home. And then the last slide that I threw in is something that in discussion, and I apologize, Michael and Susan, this came after our discussion, but when talking with my team, we realized that kind of pulling out that facade information, we're missing some of the streetscape information that was in the guidelines that are the current guidelines that are addressed as, front yard standards. So one aspect of moving into kind of more a style-based design guideline is that you would need a kind of a separate section to address streetscapes. And these are kind of the graphics that might be included. The thing is this section would have to be pretty general because you can't have, it's not going to pop up with your setbacks and massing for every single home, right? It's just, there would be too many images. So you would this is just to kind of give folks an idea. Well, take a look at your street. What are the setbacks? What are, is it mostly 1 story? Do you have 2 stories or, whatever it is, right? Do you have the parkway? Do you have driveways, et cetera? So this kind of encourages people to take a look. Now, I think it would be important that if there were streetscape design guidelines, that there be a study that talks about, some of these streetscapes, which we did not include in that 2020 update. So you could really, pull out some of this stuff. However, there is a lot of really good information in the current guidelines as well. So here's where we would like some, feedback from the committee on, what you think, how you think do you think this actually hurts? Is the interactive map thing going to just really upset people? Do you like the style-based approach? What do you think your property owners would appreciate?
I'm all about geospatial searching and organization, personally. And I do think that's important to have a streetscape component, which I'm wondering, are you then morphing over to landscaping and to some degree? Or could that be addressed? That's just something to consider, I guess, when we get to that point, I guess, to create those guidelines for that, so. I like the approach as far as the big picture. I think would make it easier. If I were, I use the assessor's website and I find it really easy.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that side though, where you look at a map and then you like click on it. I usually type in my address, and then it gets me there. So I guess what I'm hoping for, would it have both components? Could that exist here, where you either do it via map
Either way.
or by typing in the data that you have? Because our streets are a little cattywampus as far as they go this way and that way, and so to try and find your home
Right.
by a map can potentially be a little confusing.
No, I think that's really the limit is only what is the capabilities of the IT folks who are gonna, and GIS folks who are gonna have to put all this together. But I think, you can. Thank you for bringing that up. You can enter your address in there. The only issue that I've found is that Ash Street, if you enter in addresses on Ash Street, it takes you to somewhere in Henderson or something.
Yeah.
So there are some glitches, but yes, that would probably be preferable, I would think.
So two things that are missing, and I think this is getting maybe into the weeds, but and this has to do with the summary page, and I have comments that I can send you later or send to you to send to Courtney, but this is also for the committee, these guidelines to help us evaluate projects and the building permit office as well, right? We don't only review sites that are within the historic district, we review other resources such as signs that are outside of the district. So I guess I'm just wondering, should that be included in this as well?
Well, I think the priority, since we're looking at chapter 27 and specifically the historic district, is to update the design guidelines for the district, and we can always explore additional guidelines for the other aspects.
And maybe we don't come up with design guidelines for the signage, the hotel area, but at least in the summary we could say, because it does say that the Historic Preservation Committee reviews this, we could just say, and we also review other stuff too. And you could it's just providing links to the sign code, perhaps. I don't know. There's something to deal with.
Yeah, I think right now what we're looking for is your direct feedback, guidance for Courtney, because the objective here is to have her go and this was her kind of example and her thoughts on the direction we should go with the guidelines. If you agree with that, if there are other aspects of the guidelines that you want us to focus on, giving us direction so that Courtney can start working on coming up with some draft guideline modifications to bring back to the committee.
Okay. This one letter that you included in the packet, I thought it's called Historic Guidelines, just a comment here. I thought this was a very pleasant letter to look at and read if I was making an application. The only thing is, it does have one minor mistake. It says we meet at 7, we've changed that to 5. It's on page, let's see, page 194. Yeah, 194. It should say 5.
Yeah, those are the existing design guidelines.
Okay. And
So
I thought that was a really pleasant letter, the way that was.
Yeah, that's how they're currently, that's what was
Okay.
created by the committee
Yeah.
over 10 years ago. So
Okay.
we want to focus on updating all of the design guidelines based on the committee's recommendations.
Okay.
So you mentioned, speaking of this preface, it's repeated for all of the charts, these historic guidelines. Are you suggesting this be incorporated in the summary or something else?
Yeah, I think the summary page, we'd like to rethink that a little bit as well. It might be something that's more, we can pull some of the language that's not repetitive out to that, but it might need different, we kind of just looked at it the way it is right now and made some changes to sort of update it based on the style stuff, but it can probably use a little bit of a reworking, so that, the headers are, the bolded lines are a little bit more informative and, just, again, I think the links are really key here, because I don't know, in my experience, nobody reads that stuff. And I don't know if Boulder City is different, but I was always, when I was with the city of Las Vegas, we always had to make, it was like bullet points, so nobody reads it, but I do think the information is valuable, but if you have good, if you have strong bolded headlines and links, I think that helps kind of people's eyes kind of move to what they really need to see. I don't know,
I think you're right. The shorter, the better.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure, again, I'm new to this game with Boulder City in the sense of, this part of the process, right? With individual applications for revisions to folks' homes and stuff. So I don't really know, what the level of sophistication is of the public in being able to find this information or what, how much information they want. And, we can obviously customize this to, whatever the needs of the community are.
Madam Chairman, if I
Yes.
could offer some background that may help explain at least how the guidelines are the way they are now.
Yeah.
As Michael mentioned, these were created over a few years. And basically, each set of guidelines was created at a different time because the committee worked on one group at a time. And keep in mind, this was, more than 10 years ago. And especially since, the guidelines were basically the first thing the new committee was working on after they started, for the most part, or very shortly after they started. And so the whole idea of there being guidelines for the historic district was a new thing at that time. And so the idea was, as people were coming in to turn in their building permits or to ask what they needed to turn in a building permit, that we could hand them information applicable to, where they lived. And so that's why, each set of guidelines was separate and each one of them has duplicate information, because ultimately that's why we had to create that master guidelines chart, was so that, okay, you could look up, is your address on this list? And if so, this is the chart you go to. And then you could either get a paper copy of just the chart for your area or go online and click on just what you need rather than putting them all together in one giant document. And of course, keep in mind, again, 10 years ago, everybody was coming to the counter, coming to the office to do everything. This was all pre-pandemic.
And the internet was as big.
Right, and we had tons of paper handouts that we're giving to people for everything, for their building permits, for their checklists, all the information they needed for 100 different types of permits. And literally, we had like 8 pockets on the wall with all the different guidelines so that anybody who was dealing with the customer at that front counter could say, okay, you live on Ash Street, boom, here's chart 1, please review these before you submit for a building permit. The idea was keep it simple for them, and also because paper copies were the norm back then. Obviously now more and more people are doing things online. Our department moved to most submittals online. Most inquiries we get are by phone or online as well. Now, even though our population is older than most, our median age here is actually, I think, slightly under 50 now, which means more than half of our population is over 50. Most of those people are computer literate. However, not all would be. So my one thought about having all the guidelines in one document would be obviously keeping it still easy for people if they're opening up that document to find what they need. Because the only benefit of the multiple documents now is you get what you need. You don't have to wade through stuff that doesn't apply to your street or your house or your style. And the other aspect, which again, the committee can change over time, however it likes, is that when you do your public events, in the past, you've liked to have those paper handouts to be able to give the public if they were new or hadn't been to an event before, so they could, you know, pick up just the guidelines they needed versus, say, a 50-page document that we might have to print up. Now, for people who want paper documents, even if we do have them all consolidated to one, that could still work, because for the few who want something paper, staff could basically create excerpts. We could create an excerpt of the intro information and then create an excerpt of the style that they need and put that in a new PDF or print it out for them if they needed something paper. So I guess that's one thing to keep in mind, is just like maybe we, in a sense, kind of maybe have to have both versions, or staff can work with both. And the other thing I'd be curious about is if a lot of information is going to be, if it all will only be accessible in a sense through the website. Because for instance, you mentioned that, okay, if you go online and click on your property, you'd have this menu that would pop up with all this data. I think we're still going to need to have somehow a separate document that also has that has all that data, because I think you might have mentioned it's like, well, the online information or something wouldn't need this, or rather the guidelines document wouldn't need this chart because you could get that by going online and clicking on it. I don't know that that will serve all customers, because we occasionally get people who say, no, I don't use my internet, I don't use my email, you know, you're just gonna, let me come by the office and I'll pick it up kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I guess I think 95% of the populace will appreciate being able to access everything online, but we at least have to allow for the situations where staff is gonna have to manipulate something else and either print it out for them or get it to them in some other way.
So I just wanted to clarify really quickly. When I said all the guidelines in one document, I might have misspoke. What I meant was you would hit, the link would say all guidelines, and then it would take you to another page that had the different guidelines, all the links, so that you didn't have to print out one document or one, huge PDF. You would go to whichever one you needed, like Spanish Revival style or whatever. So that's what I meant, because I don't think we need everything in one big PDF, because it doesn't make it easy for people to pull out what they need.
Okay.
But I was thinking more in terms of cleaning up that page, that web page, because there are so many links on that web page. And maybe this might help clean up some of that, like take all those individual guideline charts and just put it on another page.
I see.
So on that main page, you would have step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, that's it. That kind of thing. And then links to the nomination and the Secretary of Interior Standards and the Northwind report. But that would be our recommendation, is to just kind of pull some of that stuff off, because it's kind of busy. But yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hopefully that helps your.
Yes.
Okay.
At least understanding what you had in mind.
Sure. I apologize for that.
Yeah, I was gonna make a quick comment. You commented about, bullet points and links to different places, and I think that's, personal opinion, I think that's something like that's the way to go. Susan brought up some older people that aren't quite as computer savvy. A lot of people I know, they're older, and they're not super savvy, but, they can deal with, Googling something, and if there's a link, they can click on that link and take them where they want to go. They just need some basic information. Okay, they go to the city website, like you're saying. Okay, historic preservation guidelines. Okay, click on that. Boom. Then it takes them to, okay, hey, you've got what do you want to do? And like you're saying, different links, and people can go to that link and guide them out. I think. Personally, I think that's the way to go, and it sounds like that's, looking at that's kind of the direction you're going. my opinion, I think that, you know, it's simple, keep it simple, the KISS principle, you know, and then even our older residents that aren't as computer savvy as some of the younger people, but keep in mind, a lot of our older residents, you know, they grew up with computers too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was working on computers in the 70s. You know, I mean, that's, what, 50 years ago? You know, I mean, you know, so I mean, you know, see, I think sometimes you gotta take, and I don't know anybody that doesn't have a smartphone anymore. You know, even the old 80-year-old guys at our Legion post, every one of them's got a smartphone, you know, and they use them. So, I mean, it's just, but they like the links, you know, just, you know, I want a basic thing, how do I do this? Here's a link, click on it, boom, takes them right to where, how to do that or what to look up. So that's just my thoughts. I think that's the right direction to go. Keeping it simple, keeping it easy. So just my thoughts on that.
Okay. Michael, did you have something?
Well, Madam Chair, I guess, what content changes is the committee interested in us looking at for the guidelines? Certainly, we will work on ways to improve how that information gets out to the public and make it easy for them, because that is part of our goal. But to kind of give Courtney direction on what she's working on, which is going to be coming back to you with proposed changes to those guidelines. First off, do you like the approach she's taking? What information have you found difficult to use or to read in the guidelines as they currently are written that we should be focused on? What areas do you think are missing? So I think that's, you know, the kind of good feedback that you could provide us tonight so that Courtney has some direction on what to work on.
Okay. Any other comments?
Well, I'll make a
Sherry has?
comment about if I understand what the approach, Courtney, I think is fine. I mean, the idea of categorizing by style as opposed to who built it at what time kind of thing is great, and simplifying in other words, your example here is I think that's a good approach. My concern with the guidelines isn't so much the guidelines per se as they're written. My concern with the guidelines is what they apply to, and things that need to be made clear. First of all, the way things stand now, not all buildings within the district have guidelines. Commercial buildings have they have something. I don't know what it is, but they have something. New buildings don't have any guidelines. Those things all need to be included, and they aren't now. My biggest complaint about the whole idea of guidelines is, and it's still in this example, is that the guidelines aren't mandatory. And if we don't make the guidelines mandatory, we don't have a historic preservation ordinance. I'm sorry, people just cannot get that through their heads. But that verbiage has to be changed. Now, whether it's changed as part of the guidelines or whether it's changed as part of the ordinance, I'm not clear on that. I don't know. But I'll guarantee you, if you say it's not mandatory, I don't give a damn what your guidelines say. People will say, it's my house, I can do whatever I want with it. And they will, and they have, to the point that we no longer have enough historic buildings within the historic district to be classified as historic, okay? And that's got to change. And I think some of this verbiage the guidelines for, you know, you can dawdle on about windows and eaves and et cetera, and all that's important and it's good. But windows is a perfect example, because windows are included in the guidelines, but then it very clearly states that you don't need a permit for windows. So every time a window comes up, the Historic Preservation Committee doesn't have any say over it because they don't need a permit for it. Fences. The guidelines talk about fences.
Actually, they don't.
Yes, they do.
Well,
There's fences in the guidelines, I'm sorry. But city code says if it's 4 feet or less, they don't require a permit. So if they don't require a permit, they don't have to be looked at by the Historic Preservation Committee. So those are the things that concern me about the guidelines. I think your approach is great. I mean, that seems a lot cleaner.
Maybe,
But if we don't address some of these other issues, we're just
I
spinning
think
our
for
wheels.
now, Courtney, I think for now,
The-
since we haven't passed the new code yet, I think what you're doing is just fine. And if it's okay with Susan, who works with it, you know, so, all the time, I don't hear any other complaints. No, I know, but I mean, it's not gonna change radically until the code's passed. So, the updates that she's doing right now, probably are okay, for now.
What I was wondering though is, Michael, your question was, did you want us to provide details where the actual charts, the current charts, they have incorrect information? I mean, they all need to be updated, but do you want us to send to you, well, we noticed that the front yards should be, say this, for this particular property, it's incorrect, or it was incorrect, or for whichever area it was. Because there's some old information, totally different from your current update, your 2020 update. But your 2020 update confirms those mistakes that are in the guidelines. So are you catching those, or are you relying on us to also catch them as well and give you the specifics, or?
We are hopefully going to catch them all. That's part of the process.
Okay.
After we get some feedback from the committee, I believe that we're going to go back and do a deep dive on the rest of them. Is that correct, Michael?
Correct.
Okay. So we'll be going through and looking at all of that and looking at our report and seeing, and we've already noticed a couple of things just in doing reviewing one of the applications earlier, where we were looking at the guidelines and we're like, hey, that's not really true.
Yeah.
So we've already noticed a couple things, but that being said, once we turn it all in, I'm sure that you guys will notice that we didn't catch all of it. So I think that would be, to save your time, that would be the most helpful at that point, is to review those and say, we noticed that you didn't mention this.
Yeah.
Certainly, if you've identified things already in your review and can share that with us now, that will help Courtney and
Yeah.
help us with
Right,
the
anything you
updates.
notice that isn't right, go ahead and tell her, because she's doing that now, so.
I have a question for Susan. Over the years, when somebody comes to the city for a permit or a question about a historic property, do you think that they've already done their homework, either online or whatever is out there? Or do they say, hey, I live at blah, 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 what do you know about it? And you do the research? for them?
basically, both of those situations happen now. Lots of people will call in and say, hey, I was looking over the guidelines on the website, and, am I gonna have to go to the committee, or not? But then plenty of people, especially if they've only just bought a property or are still looking maybe to buy a property, the first thing they do is, well, they'll just stop at City Hall and ask, what can you tell me about this property? And then, for the guidelines, I will, tell them that it's online, and most people usually don't have a problem with looking it up that way. And at least for the past several months, if not close to a year, I've been telling people, well, these are the current guidelines, but they will likely change. And currently, these guidelines are not mandatory, but that very possibly could change, in the next year or so as well. And I guess one other comment I would have, and we'll be working with Courtney on this, is, as you know, Courtney is our consultant, but it's not as if she's full-time working for Boulder City. She will not be reviewing, at least from the get-go, every single permit that we get will not automatically be shot to her for review if it's in the historic district. I will still have to be basically the front gatekeeper looking at the plans as they come in, and I'll still have to review it against whatever guidelines we have. And then anything I'm uncertain about how to interpret, then I'll, be contacting Courtney, as I did for this one on 409 Ash. I saw 4 possible items that might not comply with the guidelines, and I wasn't sure how to interpret it. So she and I emailed back and forth and, confirmed that really only 2 of the guidelines were at hand or an issue. And so however the guidelines get adopted or revised, they'll just need to be very clear for both myself as well as the property owners. It's like, okay, what is going to trigger review by the committee? And relative to Charlie's comment, part of that aspect, yes, is going to have to deal with the code and how it gets adopted, because right now we don't know exactly what will get adopted, and we don't know if there will be different standards for different parts of the historic district, just like right now there are different guidelines. And, basically there's a lot more leeway for the Avenue homes than there is for homes elsewhere. And so ultimately, as Michael pointed out, the guidelines need updating even if the code isn't amended. So it's
Right.
very possible that we will get revised guidelines first that isn't going to mention necessarily what is mandatory or not, because I believe the approach Michael is thinking that we'll be taking is, since the residents, were stating at the workshops that they want to know how a new code would affect them. Well, a key part of that is, what guidelines are they going to have to comply with? So those need to be clarified even if the code isn't amended. So we'll likely get that first, and then be dealing, with the code adoption process to see what gets approved. And then if need be, the guidelines can be updated after that to reference, okay, everything is mandatory compliance, or only these things are mandatory, or only these streets, or these style of homes, or only if it's contributing versus non-contributing, is it mandatory? We don't know any of that yet. But even before the code is amended, the guidelines will need to be clear enough so that I can understand, as I'm doing a first review, it's like, okay, is this something that is going to need to go to the committee or not? Does it comply? And like, just for reference, in the example for your Spanish revival, it may be possible, or maybe other Spanish revival homes in other districts in the country can be 2 stories, but obviously in Boulder City, for the most part, all of our homes are 1 story. So that would need to be a feature that's in there, because otherwise I have to go by ultimately what gets adopted by the city council, and the city council will be approving changes to the guidelines, after your recommendation. So if 1 story isn't listed there, that's not something that I can reject or do anything about. So the guidelines will still need to be very clear in terms of, and all the features that are important to the committee to be addressed.
Courtney, I have one other comment that just came to mind. In looking at your 2020, or North Winds 2020, I believe there was a column for diminished. And the question I had was, it seems to me that there's some kind of a subjective assessment of how much something can be diminished before it is kicked into a non-contributing category. Is there any way to quantify that at all in the guidelines? I mean, can you have 2 little things that are, can you have something that's a little bit visible from the street, or, if you understand what I'm saying, that diminished category, it kind of bugs me.
Well, that was, I don't recall specifically a diminished category. Maybe it was the non-contributing category, so I don't.
Well, I think there's a chart in our, I didn't bring the thing, but it has a different category. It can be, well, I don't think you used original, but it can be, It can be contributing, non-contributing, it can be eligible for listing.
Wait a minute, I think I know what you mean. If we go to the 409 Ash Street,
I didn't bring
I
my
think you're
computer.
talking,
Or I'd look up that, I'd just look up the,
it's on page, 36 of the packet, the 1983, the inventory forms, and the categories for architectural integrity on that 1983 SHPO form were original, for the integrity, the categories were original, irretrievable, or retrievable.
oh, yeah, right, yeah, that was the 83.
Well, well, that's, like, I mean, there's, I don't
Susan,
think,
what page was that again? I'm sorry.
page 36.
So there's a couple, while you guys are looking for that, there really isn't a way to quantify it. Northwind uses what is roughly industry standard, and it's kind of the 3 strikes rule. So if you have missing windows, you've added a porch, and you've filled in your garage or something, would be 3 strikes. We also typically go, we use, our criteria is, you know, is it visible from the public right-of-way, which is different than saying, is it visible from the street? And that was another change that I had suggested in the, but I wanted some feedback on that as well. That was in the summary sheet, was should you be saying public right-of-way or should you be saying street? Now, public right-of-way in Boulder City means the alleys as well, right? So it opens up it opens up a can of worms. So that's, that would broaden that 3 strikes rule quite a bit. So there's just those 2 things to consider, but it isn't really quantifiable because every house is different. Every style is different. Every, you know, manifestation of that style is different. So it's more like a 3 strikes. And the 3 strikes are also kind of based on the character defining features, which in almost every building, if you have the original windows, they're going to be character defining features. If you have, you know, the original massing, the facade materials, those types of things are going to be character defining features. So that helps you kind of determine your 3 strikes.
Okay, yeah,
So I know, I'm sorry, that's sort
well,
of.
I'll try to be more specific if we're gonna have some more input, because I'm going through that list, sort of, it's a long list, Courtney, and you've got a whole bunch of 1,500 pages in that report.
That's a big district.
One of the things in your summary that I had a question about.
Okay.
Was the question, does every property in the historic district have guidelines? This is on page 205 of the packet. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 7 lines down. For example, certain work requiring a permit that does not necessarily comply with the guidelines established for a particular architectural style, yet does not detract from the overall significance of the district, may be approved administratively.
Yes, I have that same.
What does that mean?
Well, so, what that means is that essentially, in some districts, you have your contributing and your non-contributing properties. The contributing properties have a higher standard of review. So when you're looking at a proposed alteration, you're judging that alteration based on the historic architecture of the building and the district. With non-contributing properties, you're kind of judging it based on the historic characters of the district itself, and not necessarily the building, because it's already a non-contributing property. So, for example, a good example would be something that came up here in Boulder City a few weeks ago with the, and Susan, I hope it's okay to mention this, but it was the Vancouver House application with the
Front porch?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and of course, nobody here is gonna know what a Vancouver house
Okay.
is, so.
Yeah,
so
we
there was-
do.
Some of us know what a Vancouver.
There was
Yeah,
the,
we
Thank
do.
you.
the house that was moved there in the 80s, and it was two of the Vancouver homes put together and
Back to
covered in
back.
stucco. So it has no integrity whatsoever, but they wanted to add a patio, and they wanted to make the porch railing look like all of the other homes on the street, and, you know, my recommendation was that they should not do that, because you don't want to look at that and say, oh, that's an original house because of the porch, but they've just done some weird things to the building. So in that sense, you know, staff can easily say, you know, this work complies with the guidelines, and, you know, it can be approved administratively. So that's something that the committee would want to work out as the ordinance, you know, gets redone, is what kinds of things are able to be approved administratively and which ones aren't.
When you say administratively, you said staff, does that not include you? Like-
Well, it could, but I mean, I could be hit by a bus tomorrow or something, so I think, you know, I am staff assistance, of course, but ultimately it lies with staff. So they could, you know, certainly Susan could ask me for input as she has in the past, or if it's something pretty straightforward, you know, that's up to the committee to determine how comfortable they are with administrative reviews.
And I guess to add to that, or sort of follow up from what I said before, because we don't have a full-time historic preservation staff person, we have a budget with Courtney, and, you know, we're gonna try to use her as best we can, and we'll certainly be reporting back to the city council if, you know, how much we use her exceeds our budget. You know, I mean, down the road, you may have a full-time staff person for that, but right now you don't. And so, like I said, in order to be judicious of what is critical for us to use Courtney for, that's why the guidelines need to be clear so that staff will know. It's like, okay, this proposal meets this, and this, therefore, it can be approved. Just like right now, the way the guidelines work, even though they're not mandatory, if a proposal complies with all the guidelines, we don't send it to you, because what's the point? They've complied with all the guidelines. They've done everything they're supposed to do. So basically, that permit goes forward, being approved by staff, just, you know, as any other permit outside the historic district.
Right.
My response to that, though, and don't take this personally, but I think that's one of the things that should be avoided, because staff, and again, Susan, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking 20 years in the future, okay? Somebody comes along, staff may not have any better qualifications for deciding whether or not the guidelines are met than the man on the street has, okay? And to allow staff to make the decision regarding a historic preservation question, I think should be avoided. And that's not any knock to you. I'm saying, okay, you're gonna retire someday, Susan.
Sooner than you think. And trust me.
And it will not be a good thing, and I'm serious about that. But I look at historic preservation as it isn't a 5-year deal. It isn't a 10-year deal. I mean, it's in perpetuity, okay? If you're going, and this town has a terrible, terrible record for historic preservation. City planning commissions, the city councils have done a terrible job of historic preservation here. And I think we're trying to change that. I know that we are, but whether or not it gets done, I don't. So anyway, I look at these things a little bit differently. And every time I hear staff, I think, now wait a minute, you know, why is staff qualified to make this decision? And, you know, so, and that's where I'm coming from, okay? And it's not a criticism, Susan.
No. and
Okay.
Madam Chair, I
Yes,
guess.
go ahead.
I think
I
you're
think
thinking
we've
the
had
same-
enough discussion, yeah.
Well, a lot of the things that you're covering is really going to be in the ordinance, which is
Right.
currently with the ad hoc Historic Preservation Ordinance Committee. And so that will ultimately be coming along. And I'm recognizing that there are some things that maybe are not clear yet with the guidelines as they relate to the ordinance. But there's a recognition that the guidelines need to be updated. There's a recognition that there's been some areas that haven't been addressed. And that's what we're looking for feedback here tonight. Administrative processes will be addressed with the ordinance.
Right. Okay,
Yes,
I think,
but they're noted in this guideline document.
okay, I think we've given Courtney enough input,
We-
so
we-
I think we're going to move on now.
I just want to
you
say,
wanna
though,
have-
I
okay.
just think we could address it within our current ordinance and in the guidelines by utilizing the kind of that flow chart that we created that is attached to the new ordinance. However, that flow chart, as far as, and this goes into that step 1, step 2, step 3 process. Does it meet the Secretary of Interior standards? No, then it does this. If it does not, then it goes here. And it had that approval process kind of spelled out. So I wonder if that process should be part of this as well? Because we're confused about what is administrative need or who reviews what meets the permit process and not. And maybe that's something that's missing from here. And would that make it easier for the public as well as staff to weed through the guidance? And I will need to show you that, or I can send that to you. Do you recall
you
what I
send
said
that,
that?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think that would be good.
Well, I think what you're talking about, Committee Member Davenport, is the guidance for the regulatory review by the city.
You mean of permits, or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Which is in here to some degree.
to some degree. But I see that that is a separate document in and of itself to help the public understand the steps that are involved. The design guidelines are to give them an understanding of, in particular, their property and, you know, the contributing features of their property, not necessarily the overall process.
But it eventually leads to a question about the process, and when especially does it, I don't know, we'll get to that part.
But with the steps, that's tied inherently to whatever ordinance changes occur.
It's currently now, as far as I think the public is confused about, well, what part of my preservation project does need a permit or not? And so I don't know if that can be more clearly articulated in a step-by-step flow chart or process, I don't know.
Okay, well, that's something you can work on with them. I think we're going to move on. Okay, all right. We're going to move on to number 5 for possible action.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, Courtney, thank you.
Great job,
No.
Courtney.
Yeah.
Thanks, I appreciate your comments.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, for possible action, discussion on possible revisions to the guidelines for the RDA Redevelopment Agency Historic Preservation Grant Program.
So, committee, this is the compilation of your feedback from last month. You have attached the original guidelines as well as your proposed changes that are noted in red lines. We want to make sure that we've captured all of your feedback. The next step in the process is with committee recommendation on proposed changes. We would take this to the city council for consideration.
Okay. All right, any comments at this time?
I have a couple of things. On page 222, the purpose, I see we've changed the program is no longer on a first-come, first-served basis. It is only subject to funding availability and community promotion to encourage participation. I like that, Michael, except that I'm a little confused now about, you know, I don't understand. If I want to apply for a grant, when do I do it, I guess, is the question. I mean, I'm the one that objected to a first-come, first-served basis. I'm glad to see that's gone, but I'm not quite sure what has replaced it is my question. I mean, when can I apply for the grant, okay? I mean...
Well, I would look at it as just the way it is, you know, as funds are allocated based on, you know, what funds available. So you can apply any time, and if there's funds available and it gets approved by the
Okay,
committee.
well, all right, that's fine.
You know, I mean.
So it's the first guy that comes gets the, yeah.
Well, yeah, and if the project. Well, I
All
mean.
right, no, it's all right, I'm not gonna mention that anymore.
Well, what, you know, if you put any kind of a date on it, you're always gonna have the first one to respond after that date. So you're always gonna have the first one in the door, no matter.
No, we've got a whole section in here on a CCCHP grant and the process. And the process has an application date, deadline. And then when they get all of the applications in, then they make a decision. But we don't seem to be able to do that, and I don't know why, and I give up. I mean, that's fine.
Member Hans, I think part of the conversation last month was if you have a set deadline and you have people making improvements, the whole point of this grant program is to encourage them to utilize the grant program so that they're thinking about the historic preservation of the property. If you set one date a year or even one date every quarter, it discourages participation. One of the things we found when I started with the city 4.5 years ago, the city was only looking at RDA grants once a quarter. And a lot of people were just passing it up because they were moving forward with their project. And so if you're rigid in that way, it's going to discourage participation, and then you're defeating the purpose of incentivizing people to think of historic preservation.
Doesn't seem to bother the CCCHP people, but I guess it bothers us, so whatever, that's fine. I do have one other question. I see on the, it was interesting that the CCCHP grant covenant is based, the length of the covenant is based on the amount of the grant. And I noticed for anything up to, well, up to $100,000 basically, is a 20-year covenant required. And those can go all the way up to 50 years or perpetuity. Yet we have a 10-year covenant, apparently, because the covenant isn't mentioned in here, but you told me we have a covenant. So it just seems to me that 10 years is a pretty short period of time. I mean, if you're going to give somebody $100,000, then they ought to be at least 20 years, and if it's more than $100,000, it ought to be 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 years. So
Can I take that further and just, can I suggest that you all consider that that amount be commensurate with the SHPO or the CCHP covenant length, or?
We could, but both of those numbers are going to be way beyond what we can give through RDA. The max is $99,900.
right, which is a 20-year,
20
calls
years,
for a
yeah.
20-year covenant if you get that. So I mean, if it was 50,000, you might want 10 years. I mean, but like Blair says, can you do it that way? If they get 50,000, they have to agree to a 10-year period of covenant. If you give them 75,000, maybe it's a 15-year covenant.
If you want to propose 20 years, we can put that in. And the only thing I'll need to confer with our city attorney, the RDA will end in 2029. So I need to confirm
What
what,
page is that, Charlie?
what
223.
guarantees and
Okay.
commitments can we make property owners do beyond the existence of the RDA?
Or the RDA,
But the
okay.
RDA could be renewed.
It could, but it would take legislative action.
Oh, you
State?
mean it's from the state, the RDA?
Mhm.
Oh, it's
okay.
state, okay.
All right, well, yeah, I didn't know that, so yeah,
Well,
maybe that's.
But
yeah.
if the committee's preference is 20, I can check with our city attorney, and if that's okay, we can put that into the proposed change.
Okay.
Well, Michael, if I may, I mean, if you enter an agreement today and you sign a 20-year contract and something changes, you're still obligated to a 20-year contract. You know, so I mean, we'd be doing the same thing with the covenant. If it's, 10 years for 50,000, that sounds good, and 15 for 75, that sounds good, and you get the whole 100,000 or 999.99 for 20 years. I really don't think that's unreasonable. And if somebody applies for the grant tomorrow, and part of the deal is that they have to work with the city for the next 20 years to maintain the property, why would that have any difference if the RDA went away? It's a contract with the city.
And I will confirm that with our city
Yeah, I mean,
attorney.
that's just my thought process on that, but I mean,
And if it's okay, then if that's the committee's direction, we can put 20 years in.
I don't know, I think it sounds reasonable if you get the whole 999 to 20 years, and like Charles said, 75,000, 15, 50,000, 10. I don't know if you want to go any less than that, or for 25,000, go 5, I mean.
Well, there is one other thing, Michael. On page 229, following completion of the project, the grantee or property owner will, blah, blah, blah. It's got a 5-year period in there, and we've got a 10-year period on page 223, and that, I think those should, I think they should be the same, shouldn't they? I'm looking at the bottom red paragraph, the first bullet point, the third line. So approval of any exterior alterations, it's not talking about the covenant, but it's talking about the
Maintenance and repairs for 10 years.
repairs, and there's a 5-year. I mean, it's two different things, I
Right.
understand, but it would seem to me that they should be the same. I mean, maybe not. So after 5 years, the way I would read that, they can make some major changes, and
If the committee wants that to be changed to 20, that can be 22.
well, I'm just saying, I think they should be the same, shouldn't they? I mean, the period of the covenant and the period of maintaining the property should be the same. I mean, isn't the point of the covenant to make sure that they maintain the property?
The intent with that provision, as I recall, was to make sure that as they're moving forward with the project, that they're consulting with the city. Obviously, they have obligations under the 10-year period or the 20-year period to maintain the historical integrity. This is as the project is moving forward.
Well, it says, following completion of the project, the grantee or property owner will. So, well, I don't know, Michael.
I guess my question is, if there is a covenant, how is that covenant articulated, maintained, talked about, worked with between the owner and the city? And does the covenant say that they will maintain their property, make necessary repairs and maintenance. I mean, is it like kind of, are we duplicating things maybe?
Well, the covenant, we refer to the covenant, but the covenant is the second document that's recorded against the property. The intent here with the guidelines is to make sure they fully understand all of their obligations.
And one of those obligations may be that there's a covenant on their home. So,
Is that like a lien?
That's the
Is that
participation
like a
agreement.
lien?
or the
That's what I'm
participation
trying to-
agreement.
that's what
Right,
I'm trying
it's
to
recorded
understand.
against the property.
Yeah.
So
I
does the
don't-
does that agreement talk about maintenance and repairs, making maintenance and repairs?
It talks about the preservation, I'd have to double check on the detailed language, but basically, they have to preserve the property as referred to on page 223.
I think they could be somehow combined a little bit, maybe? If the agreement takes care of these tasks that the grantee or property owner has to do. Or maybe, is it the biennially certify in, not wiring, but writing, their compliance with the agreement, which includes maintaining the property, making necessary repairs, if that's what's in the agreement. I don't know, there's no copy of the agreement that we've seen.
So you're saying put that information only in one of the documents?
I don't,
Because you want to make sure that what's recorded with against the property has the same control as the guidelines. The guidelines here are to inform the applicant of what their obligations and responsibilities are. The owner participation agreement is the legal aspect of this that reinforces the guidelines.
Well, I think the numbers would have to match. You know, in a guideline, you're gonna, hey, we're gonna do this, you know, and then they apply for it, and then their final agreement, well, the numbers don't match. You know, which one is gonna take precedence over, now you got a legal fight, you know, which one,
That's a good point.
which comes,
that's what I've been trying to
I
say,
guess
there's two different time periods here.
We're conflating the issues. So the owner participation agreement refers to the 10 years. And we can have these two numbers within the guidelines be consistent, but they will match the owner participation agreement. So
yeah,
that
that's
there
all
isn't
I'm
that
saying, that's all I'm
conflict.
saying, is that they make sure that they do match.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, they definitely, that would definitely match. This
Yeah.
is the question
Okay.
of, under page 23, the reference to 10 years, and page 229, the reference to 5 years. I can put 20 years for both of those and make that as part of your proposal.
That's, right, that's all I was
That's what I was
asking.
saying.
Yeah, make them the same, that's simple.
Yeah, no matter what the numbers are, as long as they're the
I
same.
don't care what the number is, they ought to be the same.
So how do you want it? You want it 10
I don't care.
or 20?
We already said 20.
20?
So,
Okay.
were you done, Charlie?
I have another comment
go
on
for it.
another issue, but I'm done with that one.
Well, as a committee, we should decide if we want to go with the, you know, broken down, I mean, some 10, some 20, or just no matter what's 20
20
years.
sounds good, I don't care whether 10, 20, 50, 100, 5, so they're the same.
20 years for any amount?
So,
Someone want to make a motion?
do we need a motion? I don't.
I'd like to make a motion that we make it 20,000, 20 years, 20 million years. 20 years.
Don't say 20 million, say 20 years.
Well, I think there's
Did someone
concurrence
second the
among the
motion?
committee members to make it 20 years.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's a motion seconded.
I don't think we need to vote.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay, I hate to bring this up. I know. There's under, because I have one other comment here. Other requirements, okay, this is on page 229. Under item bullet point 2 or item B or whatever, changes to the grant scope or contractor identified in the grant application must be approved in writing by the city. I don't agree with that. I think you need two different line items here. You need a line item that talks for changes to the grant scope identified in the grant application must be approved in writing by someone. Then you need another line item that says changes to the grant contractor identified in the grant application must be approved in writing by somebody. Now, my objection is the same thing I was getting back to before. I don't mind the city agreeing to the change in the contractor, as long as the contractor meets the requirements the city has to be a viable contractor, that's fine. I don't think that the city, I assume when it says city, talking about staff, I'm sorry. I don't think that the city staff should be allowed to approve changes to the grant scope without either the professional, our consultant in this case, or the committee reviewing it. If you change the scope of the project, you're changing the project. And you went through a review process that involved city council, the Historic Preservation Committee, and the professional preservation expert. Now they want to change the scope and say, oh, well, city staff can okay the change. And I don't think that's right.
Well, the intent isn't city, but we can further clarify, the intent isn't city staff, but we can further clarify that.
Yeah, I mean, it may be a trivial thing. I mean, I don't know what change the scope means. It might mean some little doodad, but it just bothers me when I see that kind of thing, because contractors are not known necessarily for adhering to the letter of the plans.
Can I offer a suggestion? Could you say in that bullet, substantial changes to the project scope as identified in the grant application will have to be reviewed, evaluated and approved by the Historic Preservation Committee or the Historic Preservation Professional City Council.
Well, that would be better. It's still,
Right.
You still have that wiggle worm in there that bothers me. What's substantial? I mean,
What about substantial changes require a new application and consideration?
well,
So they have to go through the whole process
that
again.
That'd be better.
That would do it. I mean, that would probably make them think twice.
And didn't that happen with Mr. Turner's project? He did change it, and it did come before us again, and the city, and the RDA, and the city council.
Yeah, it did, actually.
Right.
Yeah. And in that case, it was a change for the better, and so it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that it should be reviewed. And,
Okay, so what is the wording going to say then?
Let me propose this, substantial changes to the grant scope. Well, yeah, I think project scope, and
Yeah,
I don't know if
project
you
would be-
include contractor, because you don't want them to go through the whole application process again if they switch out contractor.
no, that's why I think you need two items. You need two bullet points.
So substantial changes to the project scope must submit a new application.
Perfect.
And go through the process.
Perfect. And then the next item would be changes to the contractor can be approved administratively or by the city or whatever.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That way the city can make sure that the contractor's got the proper licensing in Boulder City or what have you.
And the project keeps moving forward. Is that all you have?
That's all well, yeah, that's all I've got.
I just have one thing, if you're ready. Are you? Okay. So on page 223, the third bullet down, all construction work must comply with the Secretary of Interior standards. See attachment 3 and then attachment 4. And I gave a copy of this to you, Michael, and I'll just read it out here. I think you need for attachment 3, the actual attachment has to have the name, the title. I think you need to make sure that the title of the attachment matches what's written in the text of the grant. I don't think it's not titled, or it doesn't have a header. Attachment 3 just says attachment 3. It doesn't say like what, you know what I mean, when you look at it? You need like a title or a header.
You want to add a title to each of the attachment references?
Yeah, so the attachment 3 would be Secretary of Interior Standards for the Treatment of Historic Resources, because that matches what you have on page 223. And for attachment 4, I suggest the title of that should be called Preservation Work That Best Preserves Historic Building Features. And then when you look at attachment 4, which is on page 234, just eliminate that.
That was the.
Eliminate that paragraph at the top there, and replace it with what I gave you, which is, I don't know if you want me to read this. But I think this was confusing. And I think that's because when originally we had this language elsewhere in the draft that we had back in November, and now that we put it as an attachment, it's kind of like out of context. So A, B, and C remains the same, just the title should be Preservation Work That Best Preserves Historic Building Features, and then I suggest the introductory paragraph says, construction work must comply with one or more of the following project types and must contribute to preserving the features of the building that make it eligible for listing in the National Register. Applicants must demonstrate holistic approach with clear prioritization of work that will ensure long-term preservation of the building and its character-defining features. This list of project types is not ranked, and projects in each category will be evaluated on an equal basis.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I didn't make that up. That was part of the proposed changes.
I know,
Okay.
but after I looked at it again, it's
So,
was confusing to me.
remove what was recommended by the committee before as that first paragraph and replace it with what you provided to me here.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Blair. Because I never would have been able to explain that.
Well, I had to find where I got it before, and it's, and that's all I had. I should say that applies to the second, the next agenda item for the residential RDA, so I don't have to repeat it.
Okay, any other corrections to this? Okay, then we can move on.
Oh, Madam Chair.
Yes,
So, you have a decision to make. You can make a motion tonight approving the proposed changes with the additional changes,
okay,
or you can ask staff to bring this back next month with all of these changes. It's up to you.
okay, well, what would the committee prefer?
I don't need to see it again if our changes are included from tonight.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Then I need a motion then.
I make a motion to accept this version with changes that we provided this evening.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Okay, now we'll move on then to number 6.
All right.
Okay,
So this is with respect to the,
wait, I didn't read it, so let me read it.
sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. For possible action, discussion and direction regarding the city's proposed residential historic preservation grant. Okay,
So at last month's meeting, after a lengthy discussion with the RDA grant guidelines, the direction from the committee was to take what was said about the RDA and where applicable, apply it to changes to the historic preservation grant guidelines. And so staff's attempted to do that. And of course, we have Member Davenport's comments with respect to titles for the attachments. Is there any other changes to these guidelines?
I have a couple of comments. The first one has to, on page 249, the review timeline. I'm curious because the commercial RDA grant had the same review timeline section. And the wording was fairly significantly different, and I'm not quite sure why. Let me find that. Where the heck did it go? Where the hell was the other set of guidelines here, other requirements? Oh yeah, on page 229 are the review timelines for the other RDA grant. And on page 249 are the review timeline for the residential RDA grant. And I don't know why they shouldn't be the same.
We can just make them the same with the exception of there's no review by the RDA committee.
Oh, well, yeah, right, then there's no
So
RDA.
I will just do that as make them the same.
Yeah, that would be simple, yeah, just because the RDA, yeah, okay. So I would recommend that we do that. So the wording would be exactly the same as
that's on page 249,
as on page 229.
229, okay.
Would be the same, with the exception of eliminating the redevelopment agency. Okay. And then, under the little green section 5, other requirements, we have the same thing here with the changes in the grant scope or contractor. So I would recommend that we do the same thing with that little paragraph that we did with that same paragraph in the other RDA grant. In other words, make it 2 bullet points. One concerning the changing grant to, what is it, project, and the other scope, and then the other one would be the contractor. So it would be the same change that we made in the other, in the commercial RDA grant, yeah. I mean, that's my suggestion. I don't know if anybody agrees or not, but that's.
I agree.
Well, I'll go ahead and agree, just keep them as close to the same as we can, within reason, obviously.
You know, it just occurred to me that for 10 years, we've got this, I'm sorry if I still have it, we've got the same problem with this covenant business. It says 10 years, page 245, and it says 5 years on 250. Well, it's one's covenant, the other one is anyway, that's, I think they should be the same, 10 years or 5 years, one or the other.
Well, the committee recommended 20 years with the RDA. Do you want to just recommend 20 for this as well?
Yes.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, any other comments then?
We already did that attachment is gonna be changed here, right? Okay.
Do we need a motion on that too?
Do we need a motion? Okay, I need a motion. Go ahead, Glenn.
Make a motion to accept this version of the residential RDA with comments and changes that the committee has made tonight to be incorporated in that final document.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carried.
So as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the next step is to take these forward to the city council for their consideration.
Okay, good. Okay,
Michael, do you need somebody from the committee there? Or do you present it 100% yourself? Or do you need like the chairperson there at that meeting for questions or anything, or? I mean, I'm not sure how, I'm just curious how it's gonna work once it gets to council. I'm just curious.
What we do is we include the minutes from the Historic Preservation Committee so that they will have all of the comments from the committee and the rationale for the proposed changes. And so we just present that to them, and certainly if they have additional questions, they can bring it back to the committee for clarification. But typically it's been sufficient to provide the minute record.
Okay, thank you.
okay, very good. All right, then we're going to move on. For possible action, update on implementation of the committee's goals and priorities.
This is the monthly update to let you know how we are doing with respect to your goals, which match the Historic Preservation Committee goals. Any questions?
Michael, what's the date for that February, the ad hoc meeting in February? Do you have that off your top?
February 15th.
15th?
Any comments on this?
No, I think we're moving along.
Yeah, we're moving along just fine. Okay, very good. All right, then, for possible action, discussion regarding activities for Historic Preservation Day and award for 2022. Okay, I think all of you found the activities, well, actually, the supplement that was provided by Blair. You found that. It's pretty comprehensive. So we've got the February utility mailer coming up. Okay, I think there was a copy of that in the packet. Does that look okay to everybody? The utility mailer.
It's already been That's just provided for your information. It can't be changed now.
Okay, that's fine.
I think it's great.
Okay, but it's coming up, so in the February utility mailer. Okay, okay, we've got timeline and tasks ready. The Historic Preservation Award, it's gonna be coming up, so the nominations are due by Sunday, April 17th. And there's a presentation at City Hall on Tuesday, May 10th. And then our Preservation Day is May 14th. Now, if you look at the task, on page 2, you'll see the tasks. And this is pretty good. I mean, it's very involved, so did you guys want to go through it and kind of make assignments? We can do that now. Okay, if you're looking at page 2, I did talk to Diana Meyer today, and they still haven't planned the plenary session, so that's still, we're still working on that. So, go ahead.
So I have an appointment with Gina,
Okay,
the chairwoman of the Art Guild and
Okay.
president of the Art Guild, and this Saturday at 1 p.m.
Okay.
And so while we're on that topic, Michael, we talked about setting up a subcommittee so that if Linda and I want to go and meet people and talk about different things related to the Historic Preservation Day, that we would be free to do that without violating the open meeting laws. So I don't know if this is a good time to discuss that and set up a subcommittee. I propose you and I, Linda, so we can go sit down with people and.
Member
Right.
Turner, the only concern is we didn't agendize for creation of that subcommittee as part of this agenda.
I assumed as part of this, maybe that could be something we could decide, but no. Well, can we
If-
agendize it for the next, well,
Yeah.
it's not gonna help much.
Yeah, we would, that would need to be, yeah.
Okay,
part of-
fair enough, I'll just go solo.
Well, would we have to have a committee for just 2 members and those 2 members only confer? I mean, that's,
That was the discussion last month, is that unfortunately, 2 members working on this requires a creation of a subcommittee.
okay, thank you.
okay.
So certainly what you can do is you can, everybody do the assignments tonight. Everybody has individual responsibilities, and then you report back next month on your progress.
Okay, all right, well, then, you're gonna meet with Gina Saturday at 1, right? Okay, good. All right, so let's go down the LADWP tasks. Coordinate plein air painting project with BC Art Guild. Okay, so Ray's gonna do that. Okay, committee member liaison with the BC Art Guild. Ray. Okay, committee member liaison to LAD Water Power Building, City Building must have responsible person present between 8 and 3. And I will say that the application has been made, so, who wants to open up the building on Friday between 8 and 3? We have to have a responsible person for the key.
So this is for Saturday, so you're saying Friday?
Friday, we have the key to kind of set up, and,
Who to get the key from? I could probably get the key, get the building open, and what all
Okay.
has to be done there on Friday? Just
okay, we
just
need to
somebody
set
show
up.
up and open the, get the keys, or what?
Yeah, well, we've got to have tables and chairs. So according to Michael, told me that, well, we've got the application already done, which I've already gotten that, the permission, get permission from city for activities. I've already got the application done, so I'm going to put my name there. But if, Glenn, you want to pick up the key on Friday at the Park and Recreation Building.
Okay, who would I see? Who would I see?
Just anybody there at the desk?
You would want to do that on Thursday because they won't have the regular hours.
Well, I
on
already
Friday.
have permission.
No, they'll be closed on Friday.
Yeah. You could just pick up the key on Thursday.
Oh, pick up the key.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Glenn, can you pick up the key on Thursday?
Yeah, but my pen
Okay.
doesn't work, so I can't write myself a note. Let me see if
I can remind you, we're quite a ways away.
Well, there's that. Oh.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
Glenn's gonna pick up the key. Okay, I've already got permission. Okay, we're gonna have to determine the number of display tables needed. See, because we have to get permission from Park and Rec. We have to order those tables ahead of time. So we're gonna ask for 50 chairs
There's some kind
and,
of brown glob on them, is that?
Oh, it's a tip to,
Oh,
there you go.
all right. They're brand new pens.
okay, so we're gonna have to determine how many tables we're gonna need. And the tables that we have to have we're gonna have to have probably 3 for the panel discussion.
Linda, they're listed up there. We need one for the welcome, one for BCHPC,
Okay,
one, and I guess these are questions. Did you want these tables, are people going to be in the LADWP building from these institutions or their information?
well, we're gonna have to have the tables set up on Fridays, so,
Do you need one for welcome?
yeah. we
Okay, do you need one for
welcome.
BC, do we need
Yeah.
one for BCHAF?
We need one for the Historic Preservation Committee, one for the Art Guild, and one for the museum.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh, I printed you out separately.
1, 2, 3, 7 tables? Okay. All right.
Okay, where the tables come from, the chairs, or somebody deliver those, are they already there, or?
Yeah, no, we've got to contact them, but I can be responsible for that. I'll contact Park and Rec. So we need 7 tables?
Well, I think we should have a couple of extra ones, so we have
Okay.
an option to, if the need is there.
Yeah, okay.
Well, and the other, you need tables for are we still doing a panel?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. And I'm suggesting 3 tables for that, so it's not crowded with social distancing.
So you have
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so now you have 8 tables.
8 tables, okay. Okay. Okay, I'm just going down the task list here. The easels for the art displays, okay, that's one thing. Does the city, we haven't done this for a while. Does the city have, like some kind of cardboard type thing that says Historic Preservation Day on it?
No, this is for the art.
Printed before.
We've done that before. I mean, we'll make an easel board, for your calendar and locations and things like that. I
Those
mean,
are
Okay.
posters.
yeah, posters.
There's posters and there's easels.
Yeah, okay, we will need that. So how many do you think we need, 2 or 3?
Are you talking about easels or posters?
Well, posters and easels.
Okay.
Because like we probably, when you come in, we want to have one that says Historic Preservation Day and a map. So we want to have probably 2 posters, one with Historic Preservation Day and one with a map. And the city can provide that, right?
What's the map for?
Well, like what's going on, like events, workshops, where they are, coming back, like just maybe, instead of a map, probably just events.
Yeah, actually, the map would be appropriate for basically the flyer or the handout that people could pick up or get online. You don't
Right.
need a poster with a map because people aren't going to memorize that.
Okay, so
but-
you just want a flyer then?
Yeah, the
Okay.
flyer for the event, which will have the schedule and the venues, and that will include the map. And-
Okay, so then all we need is then just one easel with one poster that says, Historic Preservation Day.
And you need easels for the art.
Yeah, that would be nice if we could have easels for the art.
Unless,
Actually, I guess I have a question. In the past, I mean, the only other time we had quote-unquote art displays was when the art guild, basically they had painted the tiles or the artists had painted the plein air.
Yeah, we plan to
I
do
think
a
they should
plein
bring
air.
their own easels for,
Think so?
yeah,
First,
and if
well,
not, something to prop it up against,
Yeah, first, second, and third, they should bring their own, so
The
you
artist should be
should,
responsible.
bring that with Gina? Okay, so Gina will take care of that for the Art Guild. So basically, the only easel that we will need for historic preservation is one for Historic Preservation Day, for that poster. And the city will, can I put your name down, Susan?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. And we'll go over this again, this is just, okay, and then we're gonna set up tables and easels prior to, so that would be on Friday, Glenn. And as we get closer to them, we can probably decide on what time we can all meet there, you know, to help.
On Friday or Saturday?
Well, we can do it Friday, the day before, so it's all done when we walk in.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm gonna put your name down, Glenn, for setup.
Use a little assistance.
Yeah, but I mean, you'll be kind of like in charge, but we can all help you. We'll meet you there.
Put me down for, if I can be there, I will be there. And
Okay.
most likely I will,
Yeah,
but probably not that early.
Well, the
Oh,
tables
yeah.
and chairs
Afternoon would be
outside,
better.
or somebody deliver them, or where are we getting?
well, they'll bring them, the city will bring them to
Okay.
us. Roger,
They'll already be there.
yeah,
They're probably already there now, right, Michael? The chairs and.
I'm not
And
sure.
there's usually 4 or 5 tables there.
Yeah, I
And a bunch of
recall that,
chairs.
I mean, how about this? I can confirm inventory,
Okay,
and I think you communicate that through your correspondence with Parks and Rec.
right,
But I'll confirm inventory. But
Okay.
regardless, they'll be there on Friday for setup.
okay, all right, and you will confirm, Michael will confirm. Okay. Okay. Confirm the availability of LA Water and Power Building on Friday. Okay, as far as I know, we'll be able to pick up the key on Friday, and I do have confirmation here from the city of our application. I haven't received the letter yet from the city, but I do have the application in motion. So, will you confirm, or do you want me to? For the
Confirm.
availability of the building? Or do you want me to double check with Roger?
No, if you've received that from them, that is the confirmation of.
Okay.
Yes, it's confirmed.
Okay, then I'll put my name down then. Okay. Now, volunteers to clean up, break down tables at end of the day. So I'm thinking that all of us will be there to help. And I think that's enough, you know, just our committee. Yeah, yeah. And when we're talking to people, we can like recruit volunteers, you know, some of our friends and so forth. Okay, authorized person to open and lock building. Since you're picking up the key, Glenn, do you want to be the open and lock? Okay, I'm going to put Glenn down. Okay, determine if posters, copies, name badges, or other displays are needed from the city. Notify city by April 27th. Okay, so Susan, do you want me to come in and kind of confirm with you about what we're going to need?
Yeah, either you or Blair. I think Blair kind of helped with, oops, sorry.
Okay, Blair, do you want to do that?
Yeah, except that this is to confirm at our April Historic Preservation meeting. So if we
Okay.
need to do that before or after that, we can. But we're supposed to, at our April meeting, kind of narrow all this down.
Okay, I'll put your name down then. Okay, provide posters from previous year and easels. Okay, so we'll be working, I'll put Blair and Susan.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, what posters from previous years did you have in mind?
Filtration,
They're,
that's good for directing people to the tour, you know, can point to it and say,
And there's a history of the LADWP building, history of the water building, maybe.
Okay, I think we still have
You're kind of-
those,
do we
yeah.
still have
those?
One of
Back.
them's in my window, yeah.
Okay, it's coming back
To block
now.
the sun.
Good, good.
Yeah.
All right, all right. Okay, we're gonna talk about this a little bit. We talked about having lunch, but we're gonna scratch lunch. I won't go into it, we've just eliminated that. Okay,
if I might add,
yeah.
I met with Jill Lagan.
yeah,
And we were talking about having local restaurants and businesses encourage their employees to dress up historic, and also to put, to have a menu item, a special of the day, historic meals, whatever. And I think I met with Jill Lagan, and I think she told me Charlie has the recipe book for,
Oh, yeah.
with old, so could we get copies of that or something to
Yeah.
maybe give to the businesses, and maybe they can look on that and see if they can pick something they feel like putting on their menu. And if
Yeah.
we're not providing lunch, we can at least let people know, as we
Right.
get closer. And I think Jill is probably watching. She said she was gonna try and watch tonight, so.
okay,
And Jill was very, very enthusiastic
Oh,
and
good.
excited about it, so I think it's gonna be great.
good. Yeah, that was part of the discussion that I had with Michael when I met with him about the budget to make sure we had a budget for this event. Michael suggested that we do scratch lunch because we're going to be providing coffee and donuts at the various sites, and he thought that was enough. And then since we're opening up to the public restaurants to have a special and everything, this will encourage them to go out to lunch here in the historic district. So that's going to work out just fine. Okay. Now, Glenn suggested that we have water available at lunchtime, and I think that's doable. So it's not going to cost too much. Now, how many?
Well,
did you suggest?
I was just thinking just to have water, available all day at the water treat, at the LADWP building. Just get, cooler, just keep it filled, get the little small bottles of water so people, that's usually enough to quench people's thirst, and you end up with empty bottles instead of half full bottles.
Okay.
I'm just thinking that would be a good thing to have it's gonna be May, it's gonna be warm.
Yeah.
Just have water available I don't get 4 or 5 cases, and it's not gonna go bad. The city can always use it for other things afterwards if there's any
Right.
left over.
And that's not too expensive. I think for 12, it's like $3.49. So if we got, I'm expecting about 50 guests is what I'm thinking that for the panel discussion. I don't expect more than 50. If it is, I'm going to be surprised.
Isn't that
Go
the
ahead,
limit?
Blair.
Isn't that the limit to the building?
Well, 75, 80. Yeah.
Well, you
So-
possibly can
50
have
is,
people
I
coming and
think-
going in and out of there.
Having done a few plays and stuff in there, it's always a challenge to get 60 chairs or more in there without
Yeah.
them being on top of
Kind of
each
gets
other.
crowded.
And so I think 50 is a good number.
Okay, good. All right, then we'll go ahead and get 5 cases of water. And,
Who's responsible for the refreshments and water?
well, okay, we'll talk about that some more. We do have a small budget. We have $300 to work with. And I also talked with Roger Schoaf at the museum, and he offered $300. So he would match the $300 that we have. So basically, we have about $600 to work with, which I think that'll be plenty. I'll tell you what I've done. At the 3 workshops, let's see. I'm talking with Travis, the owner at Browder Bookstore, and we pretty much have that lined up.
Wait a minute, that's a whole other,
Yeah.
what
well,
about the LADWP building?
Okay, let's go ahead and finish on that. Let's go back. We've scratched lunch. We're going to provide water. Okay.
What about coffee and donuts?
Yeah, coffee and donuts we're gonna have in the morning at 8 o'clock when people come in to get their maps.
Okay, who's responsible for that?
Okay, I'm gonna do the ordering. I'm gonna order 5 dozen. It's gonna be simple, just chocolate and glazed.
So you're ordering the coffee and donuts?
Well, I'm
And are
ordering
you
the,
picking it up?
no. I'm gonna order it, but Glenn's gonna pick it up because my car is small and 5 dozen is a lot for me.
Yeah, I can pick up 5 dozen donuts from Albertsons around 7:30 on Saturday morning, so.
Right, yeah, Glenn's gonna pick that up. Now, Ray, we talked about having coffee from Starbucks. Have you been able to get that lined up?
They're
Okay.
gonna provide the coffee.
Oh, good. So
So-
for
Who's
about
gonna-
50?
I'll let them know now that we have a number.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say 50, because I'll do 5 dozen donuts and 50 cups of coffee. That would mean 2 paper
Yeah.
of 25 from Starbucks.
And Ray, are
Okay,
you,
well, I'll take care of the coffee getting to the building.
Okay, good. Okay, so, the donuts,
Glenn's got, you've got, and
Right.
who's doing the water?
Glenn, do you want to pick up the water too? I mean, we have a budget, so if you spend any money, we would reimburse, right? Is that how it works?
the key thing is when the city is reimbursing, I'm not sure if there's, Michael, is there paperwork or a form we can give them because we can't be, yeah, we're tax exempt, so we cannot be charged for tax.
Okay,
But
I'll
that
do the
means-
water.
What,
Oh,
well, how about this?
All right.
Let's keep it simple. I can, pick up the water and the donuts,
okay,
and just make sure that that's processed and all of that, so.
okay.
Yeah.
Do you
Thank
want
you,
me,
Michael.
do you want
So
me to
Michael's gonna
order?
pick up donuts then, so I don't have to pick up donuts then, or?
Right, I'm picking up water and donuts
Okay.
at Albertsons, so we got that covered.
Okay, now,
Okay.
do I have to order it too? Do you want me to order it?
No, I
You can do that?
yeah.
Okay, all right, that's fine. So, Michael will pick up donuts and water. Okay, good. And just enough for 50, and then, Ray's gonna do Starbucks coffee for 50. Okay,
What about cups, plates, napkins?
yeah, normally, Starbucks will provide, Ray, normally Starbucks will provide the cups and the napkins and the cream and sugar.
I'll confirm that.
Yeah, that all comes like in the packet.
Yeah.
So, okay, so, he'll have the, cups provided by Starbucks.
What about
And I think-
napkins and
Yeah,
stuff for the
we probably
donuts?
should
Yeah,
have
we need napkins
Just
for
napkins?
donuts.
the napkins.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So Michael, can you pick those up too at the same time? Thank you.
Okay.
Do they have, coolers there, or anything like that for putting water in, and where would we get, is ice available, or?
No, we'll probably have to do that on our own.
No, I'm just,
So I will also pick up ice, and I have a cooler.
Okay,
One shot, we'll get it all.
all right.
okay, I
ice.
was
Ice
just,
and
just
cooler.
throwing some things we need, might need. I'm trying to throw it all on you, Michael.
I was so impressed with Michael a couple years ago when when he
move on.
helped us before. That's great. Okay.
Is one cooler fine? I've got a large one. Huh?
Clerk,
Okay.
okay. Okay, so the napkins you're gonna provide too, Michael. All right. Then, determine the number of panel tables. So we've already talked about that, and the chairs. Yeah, okay. 3 tables? Okay, and I've thought about, I'll make sure that we have plastic tablecloths and like, one of those little round things that goes around so it looks nice. I'll provide all of that. Tablecloths for the tables. Now, does the city have a portable microphone?
So this was my question. Do you need amplification for the panel? And how does that work for the city?
Well, I'm trying to recall when we had the panel discussion, was it 3 years ago?
I
Yeah.
don't remember.
And
I
we
think
had
so.
it in that venue.
I'm pretty sure we had a
I don't
microphone.
know, because I wasn't in charge that day. I was
And I
just
don't
doing the
remember.
welcome table.
Yeah, I honestly don't recall if we had it. I do know that there's a portable mic and amp.
There is one?
There is, we would need to coordinate with Parks and Rec.
Oh, Parks and Rec, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause it'll be challenging with 50 people, and people are not gonna hear in the back.
Yeah, we should have a portable microphone, though. That'll help.
So how do you coordinate that with the
Roger.
city?
With Roger, with the whole application, just making sure that
Yeah,
the amp and mic are there as well.
okay.
So will
Okay.
you take care of that, Linda?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can do that,
Thank you.
yeah.
And then setting it up, is it fairly simple?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll all be there to help, so,
Okay.
okay, I'm gonna put my name down on that. Okay. The Browder Bookstore, okay, from 9 to 10. I did line up an author, and her name is Fran Haraway. And she collaborated with the Southern Nevada Project, Women's History Project, and she collaborated on a beautiful two book series, and she's going to talk about that and also give a little history of the Browder building. So that'll be from 9 to 10. And I did reach out to Travis, the owner. I had talked to him a couple months ago, and he was excited about May 14th. And I did confirm with him that it would be open to the public that day, so there will be no charge for renting that space. It'll just be open to the public. However, I told him that the city would pay for 25 cups of coffee between 9 and 10, and that could be billed to the city. Is that okay, Michael? If they bill the city, that would come under our budget.
Well, yeah, from a budget standpoint,
Yeah.
we just need to figure out the process for payment.
Yeah, I told him that that could be billed to city directly, but we would only pay for 25 cups. I don't expect these workshops to be too big. I think it'll probably be
That's not
between
a-
20 and 30 people. Did you have some
I
concerns?
was just gonna say, is that a workshop, or that's a book reading, or a book review, or what is it?
I'm calling it a workshop.
So what is she doing?
She's going to be giving a book review.
Of her own book, okay.
Book.
Okay.
Yeah. But as far as the name of it, I'm calling it a workshop. Historical workshop. Because you have a question about that?
Well,
Susan?
yeah, no, I mean, a
Not a
workshop is,
workshop.
yeah, it's a book
You think
reading or
it
a
should
book
be
review
called-
is not a workshop,
You think
so
it should be called book review?
Yes.
if that's what she's gonna do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine.
Thank
That's fine.
you.
Yeah. And her name is Fran Haraway, and it's a two-book series of the Southern Nevada Women's Project.
Would you be able to email me the exact title of the book and the
Yes.
exact name of the spelling of her name? Because obviously that's gonna go on the flyers and everything, so we need to have it correct.
Yes, I can do that. Okay, I'm trying to get a bio too. I've got that down on my information to do too. I need to get her bio. What I'm going to plan to do, since I'm chairman, I'm going to plan to travel with the three book reviews, and I'll be there to kind of introduce our speaker and welcome them to Historic Preservation Day.
Can I'm just, when you say
three?
3 book reviews,
Yeah, because
well, there's one at Browder, there's one at the museum, and where's a 3rd book review?
at the Boulder City Company store.
Oh,
Dr. Michael Green, yeah. Well, we haven't really gotten, go ahead, all right.
So I talked to Michael Green a couple of times about that, and Michael is, he's pretty sure he can be there in person, but if not, he's gonna have his students, UNLV students, they're working on a project right now, and he didn't go into it in depth. We're going to get together. We're going to meet up soon and talk about it. But they're going to put together a historic presentation on a subject. We don't know what the subject is yet,
Okay.
but you can be sure it's going to be.
Oh, yeah, it'll be good.
You said do you have a meeting scheduled, did you say?
We have a tentative meeting.
Oh.
We're going to get together soon. So
Okay.
within the next week or two, we're going to get
Great.
together.
So, okay, so should we call that a book review too, or what do you want to call it?
Presentation or something.
Presentation?
For now, you'll come up with a better title later.
Okay, that's fine. We'll go back to,
So the Browder, so is the DAR at all involved with the Browder?
well, that's what I don't know yet. I haven't had time to reach out to the DAR. We talked about it, but I haven't had time to personally talk to them about that. They did it before, and it was really well done, and I think it was received well by the community, but I'm not sure if they want to do it again, so I'm still working on that.
Okay. So you're the liaison to Fran and the DAR?
Right.
Okay. As well as
Okay.
the Browder? Okay.
Right. Okay, so down to Browder Bookstore tasks. Okay, I'm the liaison to Browder, in which, like I said, I've got an email going with Travis, the owner. I'll be the liaison to the DAR also.
And Fran?
Yeah, okay. Put Fran here.
So do you plan to be at the event that day,
Yeah,
or for that time period between 9 and 10?
like I said, I plan to be at all those events to introduce the speaker and to just be there at that time period. So yes, I will be there. So you can put my name down. Okay, so coordinate with the city for placement of table and chairs on public sidewalk. So, okay, I'll do that.
I think that in the past was when you did have the DAR presentation outside so that they would have a spot to sit when they needed it. It wasn't for the public, so I guess this
Yeah.
item is a maybe depending on whether or not you've got DAR, because you certainly wouldn't need that if all you're having is a book review inside the store.
Right, yeah, I haven't firmed that up yet, but right now they have tables and chairs out there, just normally, you know, so. Okay, I don't think we probably need any tables and chairs delivered. They do have some outside there already.
So just cross off those next two, the
Yeah.
tables and chairs, okay.
Okay, indoor alternative in case of bad weather. I guess we could move them inside.
If it's okay with Travis?
Yeah. Like I said, I don't expect more than like 20 or 30 people at any of these book reviews. I think it's probably going to be a little smaller.
Okay.
I was in there this morning and I looked around a little bit more and looked at the couches and chairs and everything. And then the manager, I talked with her a little bit, and she said, well, they could also bring in the outdoor chairs if necessary, which they have chairs out there. So I think we're pretty well taken care of there. Now, the only other thing I was thinking about is, should we have like a cardboard structure that says Historic Preservation Day, like to put in their business so that they know that's what's going on? You know, like on an easel, you know what I mean?
Either that or, the last time we did the balloon thing,
Balloons.
I mean, we don't, just as a,
Isn't that very expensive, Tom?
we had a lot of balloons though.
Yeah, I
But
think
now we
that-
don't need, I don't think we need that many balloons, but.
No, I think he had that donated. Alan had it donated.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's for the helium.
Ooh, the helium was
It
very
would be
expensive, yeah.
expensive, yeah. Do you?
Can you get the
those
donuts? Can
cardboard-
you get some balloons? Sorry.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to get some helium too.
Up to?
I think Albertson has helium, right?
Yeah, they do. I think it would be kind of neat, though, if we had some kind of poster that says Historic Preservation Day. It looks kind of professional.
Well, I guess we can scope it out and see, if it's something, the easiest thing honestly would be something that's not too big that can be propped in a window of each of the venues, because the easels we have, they're really meant for indoor use, because they're really flimsy and lightweight.
Yeah.
Once you start putting them outside, they're just gonna get knocked
Well,
over, blown over.
yeah, they would go inside. They would be inside the lobby of the hotel, inside the company store, and inside the Browder bookstore, like where the presenter is standing. That's what my thought is.
I was thinking you were looking for some things that people could find as they're walking around.
I don't think
No?
it's necessary, because everything downtown is pretty close, and once they pick up their map at the LA Water and Power Building, they're gonna know where these places are. So I don't know how expensive
Yeah,
that
no,
would be.
if you're thinking indoors, that'll be easier. We'll just have to keep track of all the posters you want and all the easels.
I would
'cause
only need 3. Well, actually, what I would do, I think we probably could make 1, and we can just carry it from that. You don't think so? Oh, that's okay. You don't think we could carry it? Would you rather have it just there?
I would rather not carry it.
Okay.
I mean, to like 5 different events.
Okay, so
Personally,
then we would
but-
need 3. We would need 3 and 3 easels. Is that possible? Sometimes that cardboard stuff can get kind of expensive. You know what I'm talking about?
I guess then, well, let's put it this way. The city can, make posters, we can make easels available, but who's going to be responsible for setting them up at the 3 locations and then making sure they get returned to the city afterwards?
I would be.
You're
I
gonna
would
be
be.
picking and dropping off
I would have my
easels?
husband help me. I would have my husband help me. But I would be responsible. Is that possible then to have?
Yeah, we'll have to count up how many other easels you want for LAWPP, but we probably have enough, and if not, we can scrounge from other departments. So
Okay.
That's probably gonna be fine. I'm just trying to keep track, because it sounded like there's probably only gonna be at most 2 easels at LADWP. Like, so yeah, if you just want 3 for other venues, because
Yeah.
basically I assume for the other organizations, if they're there to have the tables, I mean, if the museum wants a table and,
Yeah, I was gonna ask the museum to provide us a table and a garbage can. 'Cause we're probably gonna have lemonade and cookies there. But I was gonna ask the museum to provide that, since they're right there.
right, but were they gonna be having people staying at the table or providing information about the museum, or you just want them to provide a table and lemonade?
Well, no, we would provide the lemonade and the cookies, but we just need a table from them just to have there, so we could put the lemonade and cookies on it.
Why does the museum have to provide a table?
Well, I was just thinking it might be easy, because they're right there.
Why wouldn't you just use one of the tables in the LADWP building to put lemonade and cookies on?
Because it's gonna be served at the lobby of the hotel.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
thought you were.
That's okay.
Okay,
We were on
it
another
wasn't
subject.
clear,
So,
then-
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But
Well,
as
no,
far
I'm
as the
sorry.
poster-
I thought your plan was at LADWP to have a table for the committee, a table for the museum, a table for Beach Ave, and a table for the Art Guild.
Yes.
So what's the table for, has the museum, are they gonna be bringing stuff to the table
Well-
and having people there?
we haven't got to that yet, to the hotel lobby.
But isn't the book, all that's gonna be at the hotel, not at LADWP,
Right, we're talking
correct?
about the hotel right now.
Yeah, there's 3.
But she was talking about tables at the
Yeah.
LADWP. One is for the museum. Do we want
Right.
one there for the museum or not?
Right, but we already did.
Yeah,
we
'cause they-
already did that earlier.
Yeah, but why do we need a table for the museum at the LADWP building and the museum?
Because the WP building will have the table of their information table. They'll have brochures about the museum, brochures about any kind of projects they're working on.
Did
And
they
he's
do
also-
that before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they did. In fact, they have a very professional setup, the museum does, for a table. And Roger said he would provide a volunteer to man that table also.
Okay, great. That
Yeah.
was the missing piece.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Okay, and that was another thing. I had asked Michael to email the guild, the museum, and, let's see. Oh, I don't have my notes with me. He was, oh yeah, here they are, okay. He was gonna email Roger at the museum and the art guild. Roger said he received his email. Do you know who you sent it to at the art guild?
With all the conversations from the committee individually to each of these groups, I
Yeah.
wanted to clarify what we were asking in the email since conversations have already occurred.
Uh-huh,
So he's already planning, so the museum's already planning to have a table.
yes. And then the art guild, we want them to have a table. So you could talk to Gina about that too. A table for them with any kind of information they would have, and also their,
Well, and for displaying artworks and stuff.
right, their first, second, and third.
So, yeah, so that's why I was saying we might need extra tables, but, yeah, at least one table for the art guild.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
is an email necessary if the conversations have already taken place?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Now, the other table that we talked about was your organization,
Right, we'll need a table.
and you're gonna do that too.
Can I ask,
That on the Friday.
Yeah,
can I ask a question? If we're gonna have a panel discussion, and then we have all these tables, 50 chairs, is there gonna be enough room?
well, we did it
Especially with the
before.
art?
Yeah, we did it before when we were in there. And what we did is we put the tables on the perimeter. When you first walk in, the tables were on the perimeter.
Okay,
And the art guild was kind of like towards the other corner. But the stage area is where we had the panel discussion.
right, okay.
And there was room. And
Okay.
we had even, I think that day we had over 100 people in there. It was
Play
packed.
with, we play with all that on the Friday on setup.
Okay,
Yeah, it
got
was
it.
packed. So your organization will have a table. Roger is providing a table and a volunteer. And then the art guild, we need to talk to Gina about a table. And then we also need a table for historic preservation. And, we have, like a tablecloth that says historic preservation on it, right, Susan?
It's a banner.
Yeah.
It's not a tablecloth.
Okay. Yeah, we would need the banner and a table, and then any kind of, information about historic preservation. I think we have several things like,
Right, I think that Blair already has that covered, I believe, on the
Yeah.
task list.
right, exactly. Okay, okay, so we're back to posters and copies and other displays, so we've kind of worked that out. I'm gonna put Susan's name there, and we'll continue to work on that. City to provide HPC banner, liaison can tie to rail, so,
I guess a question, because
Yeah.
we've only got 2 banners for the HPC, so are you wanting one only in front of the Browder Building, but not in front of the museum or, the
I think
BC
we
Company store?
I think we should have the banner at the LA Water and Power Building. That's where I
Yeah.
think we should have it.
Have one there, and then, I don't know, did the second one go to the,
On front of our table at the LA Water.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm sorry, what was that?
So we have 2 banners. One would go on the table that we're gonna have, historic preservation table. And then the other banner, I guess we'll just put up in somewhere.
On the railing at the LADWP building.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, okay, so one outside the building and one inside
Right.
the building on the
Right.
committee table.
exactly. Okay, and so I'm gonna put your name, Susan, since the city has to provide that.
Right, it just won't be at the Browder Bookstore.
Right, we need
so,
to move that
Yeah.
out of there.
Okay, water filtration plant, Ray. Okay, so You asked me if that had been arranged, and no, I did not make arrangements for that yet.
I'll take care of it. I
Okay.
intended to originally.
Okay, Ray's gonna take care of that.
I'm sorry. I'll take care of the paperwork for reserving the water filtration plant on the day.
Okay, so what about Ray White presentation?
I did talk to Ray White. He's very happy to hear that we would like to have him come and do it, and he's going to
Great.
check his schedule. So
Yeah.
I haven't heard back from him yet, but hopefully he'll do it.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. And then you're gonna be there from 9 to 11. Okay, now we're moving on to water filtration plant tasks. Committee liaison member is Ray. Get permission from city for activities. Ray's gonna do that.
Can we go back to the filtration plant? So
Yeah,
it says here 9 a.m. to 11, so that's the time that I would be there till, and
Yeah.
I would leave there a little earlier to get back to the LADWP building, but I don't think that's a long enough window for having the filtration plant open, so I just want to make sure that, we'll maybe noon, maybe 9 till noon.
9 till noon, okay. You wanna change that till noon, all right?
It's too short of a window.
But did you say you'd be leaving around 11?
Yes, I would, but the city will have people there, right? There's usually city volunteers there, and we can always arrange for somebody else to be there as well, a responsible party, perhaps. Usually have volunteers there, and they
I know we
open
did
and
that.
close.
Yeah, we did that a couple of years ago. We could
Yeah,
see
so I
about,
assume they would be there again. So-
that would need to be a task to ask if there was any volunteers willing to.
Yeah, and then maybe, like, they can close it up at 12, and of course, I'll make sure there's somebody else around and not just the volunteers.
Yeah, because the other thing that we're gonna need to require, like in the past, is for people going into the building to sign the waiver.
Exactly, the waivers, yeah.
So is it?
Another thing, Michael, while we're talking about waivers, so in previous tours, until Mr. Noyola came as manager, we did allow people to go up the spiral staircase and check out the upper level. So, and that went very well, but we always made sure people had sturdy shoes, like whatever, recommended that they have sturdy shoes before they go up there. So anyway, I would love it if we can go back to the way it used to be and let people go upstairs too. But that's, what do
I
you
can
think?
check with the city manager regarding that, yep.
Okay, so the waivers, Ray, you're gonna take care of? The city, should we put Michael's name down on that? For the waiver form?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, Michael?
I've got the standard waiver, so.
Okay. All right. And then the authorized person to open and lock building? Is that you, Ray?
Well, that's me until 11 a.m., but like I said, I think we'll likely have city volunteers there that will lock it up. They did last couple of times, they opened it and locked
So I'll
it
put
up.
Ray and
I didn't
Michael
have a
then.
key.
And who arranged, was it Michael, was it Ray or Michael that arranged to
They
get
were
the
uniformed volunteers.
I'm sorry?
They were uniformed city volunteers.
Put me down, I will
Okay.
the volunteers.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Now we're moving on to page 4. Determine if posters, copies, name badges, or other displays are needed from city. Yes, yes, we are. We need those. So, Susan? And I'm going to be responsible for any kind of easels or posters that those get back to the city.
So that's the history poster, Susan. But do we really need that because we have the new interpretive sign on the building? This is a question for Ray.
Oh, for the
Oh,
plant?
this is for the plant.
Oh, no, we don't need it up there, do we?
So it's up to you. Do you want extra information on an easel out there, or is that information that is on the building as well as what Ray provides enough?
Yeah, I have some posters that I will bring like I did in previous years, so no, I think we're okay. I
Okay,
think that's
so
enough.
Susan doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay, aside
so
from name badges
we'll
and whatever.
cross that out
Right.
again.
Okay.
So, Ray, you do that part. Okay, moving on to the Boulder Dam Hotel, and that starts at 10, from 10 to 11. And Tiana Marie is going to be doing a book review on her new book. And she will also have it for sale. And Roger told me that she donates all the proceeds to the museum of the sale of her book. And he's going to work out with Tiana Marie. He might be there to kind of give an overview about the hotel and the museum. But he doesn't want to take time away from Tiana Marie. So the two of them are going to work that out. So maybe Roger will be there to talk a little bit too. But that goes from 10 to 11. And then at this time, this is when we're going to have the lemonade and the sugar cookies. And I was going to talk to Roger about providing a table for the lemonade and a garbage can. Like those two things we're going to need.
And who's going to be getting the lemonade and cookies?
I'm going to.
You're going to be picking them up and...
Yeah. And taking them to.
Do you want the city to buy them, or?
Well, yeah, probably. I can probably foot the bill and then they can reimburse me.
Or you can.
It
pick-
would be just easier if
Oh,
I
if
just
you-
add the
you pick it?
cookies to
Okay.
my, yes.
Okay. All right. So, Michael, you're going to get lemonade and sugar cookies and paper cups.
I'm gonna need 2 carts.
We need help.
Actually, this year, I won't be delivering flowers this year, so I can assist Michael.
What's Holly doing?
Okay. So, we're going to need cups and napkins and maybe some paper plates.
Just
Yeah,
keep napkins.
If it's cookies, napkins.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. And then, so should I ask Roger to provide a garbage can?
Yes, it's his
Because
building.
it's right there, so, okay, and I'll make sure Roger knows that. I'll ask Roger about the garbage can.
So who's the liaison? Are you the liaison?
Yeah, I'll be the liaison,
And you're there from 10 to 11 as well as,
right. I'll move from the Browder Bookstore to the Boulder Dam Hotel.
okay.
And then after that, we go from there to the Boulder City Company store. And that goes from 11 to noon. Let's see. I talked to Tara again. Ray and I had talked to her previously, but I talked with Tara to confirm. And that's all confirmed for May 14th. And the use of the event room. Now, Ray is going to be the liaison to Dr. Green to talk to him about the event.
But you're the
But I-
liaison for the company
day.
store?
Yeah, I'm the liaison for that day. I'll be there to introduce Dr. Green and, just make sure everything goes okay and everything. So, and Tara's what we're going to do there at the company store, there won't be anything provided. People will just buy coffee and donuts from her. She has everything there to sell. So I guess it's a good trade-off for using the room, So that's what we worked out with her. Yeah. Okay, so then, moving on, I have not had time to talk to the Railroad Museum yet. My liaison to the museum is Frank Carroll. He's a friend of mine. And when I talked to Frank originally, before Christmas, he told me that the Railroad Museum actually owns a Vanderbilt car. It was a car that one of the Vanderbilt family owned, and they have accumulated it in their properties. And he said that he would be willing to open up the railroad car for a tour. Now, I understand that they have a new museum director, and I haven't met him yet. But like I said, what's his name?
His name is Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker.
Seriously?
Okay, that's interesting. All right. But I guess I'll be responsible for contacting Frank, and then I'm going to make an appointment with Mr. Walker to see what we can do. But that tour will go from 1:30 to 3, and there won't be any refreshments or anything. It'll just be open up. They're going to open up that railroad car, which I think is going to be really interesting. I don't think they've actually made that too known to the public yet, that they actually own it. So I think that might attract some interest. So, and hopefully by next month, I'll have some updates on that and some confirmation. So I'm still working on that. Okay.
Just as a reminder, hopefully you can do that, Linda, because if you want all those activities to be in the flyer that goes out in April and listing all these venues and events,
Yeah.
that flyer needs to be ready at the beginning of March,
Okay.
which means we kind of need to finalize that at next month's meeting, or at least regarding the content that you want in it, and then it'll be up to Lisa for the final design. But
Okay.
in terms of content, what we mentioned, so for instance, we wouldn't want to advertise that there's going to be a tour of a railroad car between those hours if you haven't confirmed that yet.
Exactly. Yeah. Everything else is confirmed. We're good on everything. Everything's been confirmed except for that. That is the only thing I haven't had time to get to.
And the DAR.
Yeah, the DAR, that's right. And I have a contact with the DAR, a personal contact who's a friend of mine. And I'll see if they can put something together. It'll just depend on them, you know. They're a pretty active group, so they might enjoy doing that again.
Well, I guess one thing to keep in mind is,
Yeah.
do you really want to have basically two competing events going on at the same time at the Browder Bookstore?
Yeah.
If you're going to be featuring an author inside the building discussing her book, do you really want other
Yeah, maybe
people?
we should scratch that. You think
That's
we
a thought.
should?
Yeah, because
Okay.
other people might be hanging outside watching the presentation and not even go in to see that, you know.
I think we should scratch that. What do you guys think? Which one? The DAR. Because Susan makes a good point. And I haven't talked to them. I haven't talked to them yet.
Like I
So-
said, I mean, if you want to feature the person you know who's going to be presenting the book inside the
Yeah.
Browder Bookstore, she might, you know, it doesn't necessarily make sense to have other people not even maybe come inside because they've been distracted by the DAR, or by the time they come in, they've missed half her presentation.
Right. I think we're going to scratch that. What do you guys think?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. And I think Susan makes a good point there. And since I haven't talked to them. Okay, so the only thing that left to confirm then is the railroad tour. And, yeah, I did have another question on the panel discussion. And I talked to Courtney. Courtney said, yes, she was contacted and she could be a panelist. If she can't be there, then her boss is going to come. Do you know the name of her boss at Northwind?
It's
Heidi
Greta.
Or Gretchen.
Greta,
Yeah.
that's who it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greta. So it'll be Greta or Courtney, and Mr. Mays will be there, and then
Mr. Turner.
Ray,
Mr. Turner.
yes, Ray Turner, and is Jill coming? Is Jill,
Jill Lagan?
yeah, is she gonna be a panelist?
I did not think to ask her that. I wasn't thinking she was
I
gonna
think
be
that
a
we
panelist,
only,
but I
we
will.
decided, we already
I w-
decided it was,
Yeah, well, Mr. Mays and I talked about having Jill on the panel.
in lieu of Michael, or in
No,
addition?
In addition. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4 panelists. And you're the moderator, Blair.
Okay, Jill Lagan, okay.
Yeah, so we still have to ask Jill then to confirm.
And who's doing that?
I can do that. I'll ask Jill.
Sure?
Yeah, I'll get on
Okay.
to her right away.
All right, I'm gonna have that, put your name down on my list. I have another list that this helps me make sure everything's done. Okay, so we're not sure about Jill yet then. Okay, so I think everything's coming along pretty well.
Actually, so what, Susan, do we need to, I guess, definitely have our schedule, everybody pretty much contacted, committed by our February 23rd meeting?
That would be the goal, depending on how detailed you want the content for the flyer that will go out in April, which has to be ready 1st of March. I mean, I think I mentioned before, it's just like, that flyer can, it can either have lots of detail, or if things haven't been finalized by then, it will have less detail. But
Right.
certainly the venues, but it'd be nice to list the speakers, I mean,
Yeah.
in case, there's name recognition and people, that might draw some people in.
So
Right.
is this flyer separate from the utility mailer?
The one, when I said flyer, that I'm referring to the flyer for the utility mailer. Obviously, for the event itself, we will have basically a separate handout or flyer or brochure that people will be able to pick up at the LADWP building, and that we'll have on our website so they can download it themselves, which will also have the whole schedule plus the map. But the flyer that will go in the utility mailer will be saying, hey, we've got an event, we've got HP Day planned again, here's what you can look forward to. Here are the venues, here are the speakers, here's what's happening. There will be a tour at the water filtration plant. So it'll be an informational flyer in the utility mailer inviting people to HP Day and telling them what's gonna happen.
And that has to be ready by February 23rd.
Well, basically, you'll want to finalize what content you want on the flyer by next month's meeting. So
Okay.
that's why, if you want names of speakers, you want to make sure you've confirmed everybody by then. And you would want to confirm whether or not there's going to be a tour of a historic railroad car, because that might draw people who haven't come to anything else before.
Right. Well, okay, so hopefully, we'll have that, well, everything's confirmed except for the railroad. So, and I hope to have that ready by February 23rd.
So, will the city do a press release on this event and do all
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I had another, okay. The next questions I have to do with the award, so. So are we talking about the award now? Or is
Yeah,
that a
we
separate?
can, yeah.
that-
We're on that last page 5.
Okay, good. All
Yeah.
right, so, so I put down here, Susan, this is mostly for you, the schedule for the award language and all of that. We'll do that again. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah. Once you guys select the winner, then I'm sure the committee appreciates your volunteering to come up with the appropriate, professional historical language to put on the certificate.
Okay. And then you asked about, are we doing a movie or a video of the award winner? I guess what I was thinking, what you meant was when city council presents the award to the person, that is videotaped.
Well, no, actually,
No?
what I was referencing was 2 years ago, the winner was the house on, forgive me,
Denver.
it was either Denver or Colorado.
Yeah,
But you were really ambitious then, and you chose to do 4 videos based on the winner and 3 runner-ups, and, so that those could be available through the city website. And then last year, when we knew there wouldn't be an event, and you just basically wanted to make the plan was to do a video of just the award winner, one video only, and as you know, the owner of that home did not want to participate. So what hasn't been mentioned yet is, because when you did the one 2 years ago, you didn't choose to present the award at a city council meeting. You chose to present the award at the winning property with the mayor and videotape that.
Yeah, that was a COVID deal.
Right,
Yeah.
but is that your concept for this year, or are you just thinking, no, just the award's gonna be presented at the city council meeting and nobody's gonna do a separate video of it?
I think just here, the presentation here is good enough.
That's wonderful, just so we know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, because, for instance, in the
Thanks for asking,
flyer. Yeah, well, no, it's just that before we publish the, because we're gonna have the nomination function go live on February 1. And so we don't want, right now, the old information said from last year, said, oh, yes, there will be a video presentation at the award-winning property. So we want to take that language out of that, the information for the website if you're not planning that. So I will let Lisa know tomorrow that we're not doing that part.
But, this is where I thought, because based on the utility flyer mailer for February, it does say the recipient will be recognized in a video broadcast on BCTV and posted to the city's webpage.
Well, I guess in that case, because as far as I knew, you guys didn't say you weren't doing that, so I thought Ray was still planning on doing that. But if you don't want to, it just means we will update the information.
Right, that's my point. You're going to videotape it, right?
Right.
So that's.
It's not a lie. I mean, if people want to
Right,
click
exactly, that's my point.
Yeah.
But the other question I had was, if you wanted to promote, isn't there to promote Historic Preservation Day, you could put a clip of that award within the Historic Preservation Day event stuff. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, we can certainly talk to Lisa and Holly to
Okay.
see if they can do like a little excerpt of that part of the council meeting
Yeah,
for the
if it's
presentation.
worth it, or if it looks good, or, I
Right,
mean, what do y'all
yeah.
think?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that would be
Then
great.
then it's in compliance with what your mailer says.
Right.
So-
Yeah, it's just not a video at the property. It would just be the excerpt of
Okay,
a
got
council
it.
meeting. Okay, I'll talk to Lisa about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I have another question here, just for my own information. On page 5, Historic Preservation Day and Award, it says here, due April 26th, City Council meeting for possible announcement of HP Day activities. So you want me to go to the City Council meeting and announce what's going on 4/26?
Well, that's just an option. I mean,
Okay.
in the past, often the chairman or sometimes somebody else, I mean, if you want to promote, I mean, the city will do what promotion we can, through our website and social media. But a lot of people watch city council meetings, and at the beginning of the meetings is a section for public announcements. So if somebody wants to announce, hey, we're doing Historic Preservation Day on May 14th, please come and check the city website for all the information. It's your option to show up at the 1 or 2 meetings prior to the big day to make that announcement.
Okay, okay, I can do that on 4/26. I've got that yellowed out. And then also, the actual city council award, which is May 10th. Yeah,
Okay.
okay. I think that's my husband. He's wondering where I am. Okay, all right. I think we've pretty much covered everything for that.
So do you want me to update this with what we've decided?
Yeah.
And for our next meeting, and then, okay, good.
Yeah,
One thing I noticed is that Mr. Charlie isn't on here anywhere, but.
oh.
Yeah, I didn't notice Linda
Oh,
volunteering
no, I
Charlie for
put him there,
anything.
but it's got a
Well-
question mark, so.
Yeah, Charlie, you're gonna help us set up, and you're gonna be there, right?
No, I'm gonna go to Kingman, Arizona. Actually, Linda, if you want, I would be the liaison to the Railroad Museum if you'd like me to.
Okay,
Because
sure.
I do know some people there and.
All right. Well,
Maybe that would relieve you of
some of the work.
some of that part, yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
put me
would
down
you
for
like to
that
do
if-
that?
yeah,
All right, that's
yeah.
fine with me.
Yeah,
Is your
Okay.
husband looking for his dinner, Linda?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I meant to leave that in my car and I forgot. Okay, so we're gonna have, Charlie be the liaison to the railroad. Now,
I want to get the name of your, the friend you
Yeah.
have, because,
Yeah.
'cause I'll
Can I
talk to
call
him.
you? Can I
Sure.
call you and give you all that information?
You
Oh,
can,
okay,
because we got other things to talk about besides that.
Yeah.
When you call me, we can do that.
okay. I will call you and, give you the name of my liaison.
Yep,
And,
perfect.
okay,
Yep.
that'll be fine. Great. All right, very good. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Can you turn it down?
Could you do
Well, yeah. Sorry. I meant to leave that in my car. Yeah, it is. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, we're gonna move on then to number 9. For possible action, discussion on public outreach utilizing local publications, city website, and social media.
I would just like to say that I have not finished any of the video recordings yet, but I am talking to people about giving us some stories about the buildings, but that's gonna have to be something that comes in a little after scheduled.
Ray, is that something, do you want this agenda item like bumped back a few months or something?
That would be great.
What
Because
month would you like
there's
it
a
to
lot
come
coming
back?
up. So
Right.
maybe for after,
June?
yeah, June. That's
Okay.
after Historic
Great, I
Preservation
will put
Day.
it on June then.
Okay. All right, moving on to for possible action, discussion, update on the status of properties in the historic district or other potentially eligible properties. Okay, any comments? Okay, hearing none. For possible action, committee discussion regarding potential agenda items for upcoming historical preservation committees, and we just said that. Okay, and we're opening now for public comment. Each person has up to 5 minutes to speak at the discretion of the chair. Comments made during the public comment period of the agenda may be on any subject. All remarks shall be addressed to the Historic Preservation Committee as a whole, not to any individual member of the Historic Preservation Committee, of the audience, or of the city staff. No person other than members of the Historic Preservation Committee and the person who has the floor shall be permitted to enter into any discussion, either directly or through a member of the Historic Preservation Committee, without permission of the chair or presiding officer. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this item. So public comment is open.
Linda, you may want to mention the phone number.
Yes. Thank you. The phone number is, to call in, is 702-589-9629.
You need my phone number?
Yeah, just put it right here. I'll talk to you a little bit. Since there is no public comment, then this meeting is adjourned.